We are live. We're live. We're on the YouTubes. We're on the YouTubes.
You should ask me about like physics one day when I'm really high. Maybe I'll want to talk about it then.
Yeah, I remember like one day we were talking in the beginning, we were talking and like you thought that it's water and you kept talking about vapor and water vapor. You thought my ether, because it's a fluid, you thought it's water. You thought it's like
Yeah,
water vapor, and like you kept talking about water vapor.
because like what else is it, Nick?
Yeah, man, it's like water vapor. Totally get it. Totally get it, man. Totally get it. Anyway, okay. Do you have anything fascinating to tell the internets?
I'm making a like vegan chicken patty right now, and it's really good. So it's nice, and thanks.
Okay, so to add a square root, it says here
Okay.
to type the squared notation on your PC Windows keyboard, follow these steps. Ensure numlock is turned on. This is a crucial step as a shortcut won't work with numlock off. Numlock. I don't have numlock. I have a laptop. Laptops don't have numlocks. So that's a dead end. I have a laptop. Numlock. What is numlock? Do you know what numlock is?
It
That-
turns on the number pad, like on the side. It turns it
yeah,
on and off. Like,
yeah, yeah. There's no numlock on my keyboard. I don't see numlock. So that's the end of that.
you don't even have it?
Uh, on a laptop? No, I don't.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's
I've
no.
never seen a laptop that didn't have that one.
I'll go talk to the factory.
Which factory would I have to talk to?
The factory that made the laptop.
Yeah, but which one? Like Dell or like?
Well, I don't want to disclose any personal information on the internet. It's there's definitely no numlock. I don't see numlock. So that's the end of that.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. What Okay, let me so I was studying before. Let me just turn
I'm
off.
hoping something happens with Israel today so that I can like watch a long news report.
Do you want to join
Like,
me my StreamYard so we can watch YouTube together?
I
What?
guess like every time I do that, I get disconnected, and it gets to be really fucking annoying.
You get disconnected? I thought you always leave. I'll give you the link.
It's because sometimes it lets me leave to like use my phone to text, but sometimes it disconnects me entirely, and then it doesn't reconnect me.
Okay, I give you the link. Let me ask Cenas. We were in the we started going over the AI, ChatGPT, the architecture. Continue with ChatGPT architecture. Ta-dee-da-da-da-da-da-dee-dee-doo-doo. All right. Okay. I didn't do a mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Yeah. Mic check is
Mic
good.
check.
Mic check is good. Mic check. Yeah. Okay.
I'm here.
Mic. Yeah. I see that you're here. All right. So, the YouTube Here's the live YouTube. So Casual Friday, Nigel Farage, Concord returning is free to play. Panic. Obama blames black voters for Kamala collapse. Kamala rigged. Whatever. This is Benny Johnson. 9,000 people watching. Breaking ADA. What is ADA? American Dental Association? Dental?
In a sense, like I don't know if that's who they're referring to, but I know that's a
I
version
don't
of
know.
PBA.
Victory. It's happening. Everything is breaking for Trump. Everything is breaking? What do you mean breaking? Breaking Kanye West and Bianca Censori divorce rumors, shocking new details.
Oh, dude, they just got married.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Heck,
Uh, Fight in Congress to certify Trump. President Trump. Oh, this is guy's holds a rally. Look at this guy. Let's hear him.
Ever. I'm looking forward to it, as are you. And thank you, yes. I ain't saying she a vote rigger, but fatty only make my lead bigger.
that was the
Donald
stupidest.
Trump, my friend.
Appreciate
Have a
it,
great
my
one. Enjoy today. Absolutely.
That was the
Right.
stupidest damn
What do you
thing.
do?
There's no more live channels, so like, let's go to the homepage. Tensor, no need professor. What is a tensor? Univ 5 general relativity. Hey, oh, this guy's good. Devon Tracy, I love him. Ta Nehisi Coates gets glazed by the Young Turks for being anti-Israel. What?
Ooh,
I'd like to point your attention to this news segment. This is being covered by a group, a gaggle, I believe, a murder of retards called the Young Turks, who inspired a guy to go kill. I'd like to point your attention to this news segment. This is being
Something is wrong with his audio. What's going on with his audio? No one, no one, no one has a problem with his audio. That's
thought
weird.
that was you. Like I thought that was your settings or something.
Let me listen to.
I don't know about you, but I've become rather disillusioned with artificial intelligence. Text generation is meh, fact-checking meh, images meh, and
This woman, Sabine Rosenfelder, she, she's such a leftoid. She hates AI. She hates Elon Musk. She hates everything. But she's like my favorite physicist. In terms of physics, she's the best we have. Anyway, yeah, his audio is shite.
I'd like to point your attention to this news.
And this guy, he has like amazing editing abilities. I mean, he can basically teach editing. I don't know what went wrong with it. Let me just make a note. Your audio is it's I think it's called treble. I think the treble is high.
Make sure it isn't your thing.
What?
So make sure it isn't you, because that will just look embarrassing.
No, it's not me. Here's somebody else. Let's listen to Angela Collier.
Have you ever been checking the physics archive and just scrolling through the AMO physics papers?
You see, it's clear. Her audio is clear.
I'd like to point your attention
And
to
she's
this
and
news
she's not
segment.
even using a
Have you ever been
mic.
checking the physics archive and just scrolling through the AMO physics papers and you just see that
She's not using a mic, and I don't see a mic on her. She's probably just using the iPhone or a laptop.
every single AMO experiment is done with rubidium? Have you even ever
You know what was her first? She's a physicist. You know what was her first YouTube video about?
What?
That she was SA'd
Oh,
in
what the fuck?
yeah, in university. That's what the first 2 hours on YouTube. That's what it was about. I mean, she's a leftoid. She's like a communist, but like, and simultaneously she complains about the university how they SA everybody. So, all right.
I'd like to point your attention to this news segment. This is being covered by a group, a gaggle, I believe, a murder of retards called the Young Turks, who inspired a guy to go kill 4 cops.
Yeah.
They are.
I can barely understand what he's saying. A shot in the park. Execution style 3 minutes ago. Execution style double murder in public park baffles police. Dr. Grande. Find the sum. 1 squared over 0 factorial plus 2 squared over 1 plus 3 squared over 2 factorial plus 4 squared over 3 factorial. What do you think it's going to end up being equal to?
My nuts.
What?
My nuts.
Okay. Okay.
Elon Musk buying Twitter is the end of the world,
This is, do you know Seanhead?
No.
Oh, she's
basically.
she's like a big YouTuber. She's like part of the manosphere, but she's a communist. She's a
That
communist.
sounds horrible. That sounds worse than incels.
Wait, what? It sounds worse than what? Than what?
The manosphere sounds worse than incels.
You know, the manosphere, that's like the red pill, the pickup, the MRA, like the men's rights movement. Who else? The MGTOW. Do you know MGTOW?
Yeah.
Yeah, the MGTOW, like you know, that's the manosphere. So she's part of the manosphere. She's married to, I think she married Cosmic Skeptic. No, not Cosmic something Skeptic. He doesn't make any videos anymore. Where did he go to? Forgot his name. Skeptic something. Skeptic.
Yeah, if she married Cosmic Skeptic, I'm sure we all would have known about it.
No, not Cosmic Skeptic. No, some other skeptic. Some. He's always dressed like a knight in armor. Oh, armored skeptic.
Oh, what the fuck?
Armored.
It's kidding, I guess.
Wait, I can't hear you. Your audio is not the best.
Because you're on my stove.
Look, they're not sending us their best.
Yeah, I'm eating right now, so I'm not like
That's
right next
cool.
to the mic.
That's okay. Anyway, let's see. 11 days ago. So he has 441,000 subscribers. She has 2 million, but she barely makes content.
Tyler Durden is real. He's in all of us. He's in here.
So he's like her husband. He's kind of like, I never saw his face. He always used to. I wonder when he did his face reveal.
And he's stopping us from becoming the best, most powerful versions of ourselves. Tyler Durden is all of our darkest aspects. Now, you might have learned to love those parts of yourself, to celebrate them. You might see those parts of yourselves as powerful or cool, but those.
Look at how he's making a video. He's talking to the iPhone. He's using the iPhone as the mic, and he's talking to the camera. So how do you do that? That's pretty good.
Parts of our psyche are self-destructive, and they're ruining our lives.
And somehow it's completely synced, because usually there's a slight delay.
It's your most important task in this lifetime to find and destroy Tyler Durden in your own mind. I'm talking about our shadow self, the deepest parts of our personalities that we hide from ourselves, the parts of ourselves about which we are in denial. Our shadow selves are ruling our behavior, and they're even changing our perspectives on humanity and the rest of the world. Your shadow.
Anyway, we'll come back to him. Let's get back to her. So where is she?
Elon Musk buying Twitter is the end of the world, basically. He'll amplify every extremist right-wing.
She really knows how to make content. She's really good at editing and presentation, and she's really funny, relatively.
Nazi he can find. If Elon Musk successfully purchases Twitter, it could result in World War III and the destruction of our planet. Today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany. I am frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media, anything goes. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less.
Oh my god. Because that's the definition of democracy. Content moderation. Leftoids.
Elon Musk buying Twitter? What's next? Jeff Bezos buying Twitch? Except he already fucking owns it. All these platforms are owned by these freaks, but we have to pretend Elon Musk is some unique evil because he posts stolen
Look at how she's dressed. She's like a medieval housewife.
Reddit memes.
Why
she
are they
always-
all dressed like knights?
No, she's not dressed like a knight, but she's always covering up because she doesn't want to make her content sexual. She really doesn't want to be sexualized. She really wants to, drive a message.
Sometimes. You think every billionaire is some super woke progressive who really cares about you? Give me a break with this shit. Get out of here.
He can actually.
Wait, someone has joined us? I thought I heard a pop, like somebody joined us on. Oh, wait. Okay. Oh.
Control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah.
Elon Musk buying Twitter is the end.
That's our job. It's our job to control what you think, not Elon Musk's job. Yep. Basic leftoidism 101.
End of the world, basically. He'll amplify every extremist.
Oh, I think we're done with that. Let's get back. Get back. Message to the people. Netanyahu speaks to the people of Iran and Lebanon. That's like a while ago.
Instead of the government's talking or basically wanting. Netanyahu wants to speak to the people of Lebanon and the people of Iran. He recently, I think yesterday, he made a video talking or basically wanting to speak to the people of Lebanon. And about a week ago, he made a similar video where he spoke to the people of Iran, basically calling for them to see if they like the regime they live under and, sort of asking them or sort of suggesting that there might be a better way. He asked them to basically think about what they want to achieve and what future they want to live in. When the first video came out, I was really thinking about making an episode about it, but both videos are about 3 minutes, and I didn't think there was enough in one of them to basically talk about it. But with another one that came out talking to the people of Lebanon, I think we can have a good show talking about both of them, talking about the similarities between them and also sort of subtle differences, and also what I think might be lacking when it comes to sort of.
Yeah. How SpaceX will catch Super Heavy. Ryan Hansen Space.
SpaceX's Starship rocket is currently in development, with test flights being conducted from Starbase, Texas. Starship and its first stage booster Super Heavy are designed to be fully and rapidly reusable, further expanding on the reuse capabilities achieved with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. Designing a rapidly reusable spacecraft is a complex engineering problem that involves balancing many design trade-offs. As SpaceX has iterated on the design, some parts have been removed in pursuit of improved efficiency, most notably the landing legs on the Super Heavy booster. So you might wonder how they plan to reuse the booster if it doesn't have landing legs. Well, SpaceX intends to catch the largest rocket booster ever built after it returns to the launch site with mechanical arms attached to a tower they have named Megazilla.
That's happening this week.
It sounds like science fiction, but this is exactly what SpaceX plans to do on the 5th test flight of Starship. Since the idea of catching the Super Heavy booster was proposed, many have criticized it as impossible, similar to Falcon 9 booster reuse before that became routine. Over the past 5 years, I've observed the Starship program develop from welding intents to the infrastructure that we see today, and I've created many detailed 3D models of both vehicles and ground support systems.
It's really genius. I think at the end of the day, all aircraft, certainly fighter jets, should do the same. I mean, the whole landing legs and landing is really heavy. So they should just land vertically on some catch tower. What do you think?
Just land on
Many of
boats.
which would be
What?
They should just land on boats.
Right, but we're talking about removing the legs. Like should an aircraft have landing wheels, or just land vertically like SpaceX? That's what I'm asking.
Just land on a boat.
Yeah, but okay.
used by content creators all over the world to aid public understanding. With this knowledge, I want to offer up my thoughts on how the seemingly impossible feat of catching the Super Heavy booster may be accomplished, and how it might be simpler than many people realize. Before explaining my interpretation of the catch process, I first need to go over design details that are important for the catching process, incorporated into both the Megazilla launch tower and the Super Heavy booster. After that, I will explain how these systems operate and the limitations and risks involved, and finally, follow up with a detailed description of how I expect the catch to occur procedurally, using all of the information presented in this video. To date, the Megazilla catch arms have only been used to slowly lift and translate starships and Super Heavy boosters onto the orbital launch mount for testing and launches. Catching a booster will require the arms to move much.
I mean, these arms just by themselves are very like a big convenience. So using them for the catch, I mean, that's just like a bonus.
Faster than that required for stacking. SpaceX has upgraded both of the large pistons that move the arms to increase their movement speed, but this has come with some cost. The roughly 100-ton arms have a lot of inertia when moved at speed, resulting in a noticeable amount of sway when coming to a stop. Additionally, the hydraulic systems responsible for moving the arms at speed.
So they should use like an AI, but I don't think they use AI. I think that everything they do is engineered. Like even the landing is engineered. It's not. There's no AI. I think anywhere in the real time flight.
Seems to pulse at times. A combination of these factors could make stopping the arms at a precise position for catching difficult. Keep this in mind because it will be important later. The catch arms system consists of two main components: the catch arms themselves and the carriage they are mounted to, which allows the arms to move up and down the tower. The carriage wraps around the tower and attaches using 12 skates separated into 3 pairs on both the top and bottom frames of the carriage. These skates contain an array of linear bearings that ride along the rails located on opposite sides of 3 of the tower's structural columns. Together, all 12 act like wheels on a roller coaster, constraining the carriage's motion along the length of the tower. Hardware mounted to the frame on the carriage consists of hydraulic systems and electronics responsible for controlling the large pistons that move the catch arms back and forth and actuate the smaller hydraulic systems on each arm. Each arm is attached to the carriage at 2 pivot joints. Both arms share 2 large steel pins at the lower and upper pivot joints to secure them to the carriage. The upper pin also doubles as the attachment point for the steel cable, which moves the catch arms and carriage assembly up and down the tower. The catch arms feature many systems, but the raisable landing rails are the most important for catching operations. These rails create a flat surface nearly half a meter wide and 20 meters long for the booster's load points to land on during a catch attempt. The landing rails are attached via parallel motion linkages, with some of these linkages having linear position sensors providing motion.
He didn't explain where exactly are these rails.
Data. Under the rail near the middle are 2 pistons that can push up nearly a meter, and once mass is placed on top.
What exactly is this rail? Where is it? Like he didn't point. Which is this the rail? Is this the rail? Is this the rail? Where is the rail? I think this is the rail. So does it move? I don't get it.
Catch arms feature many systems, but the raisable landing rails are the most important for catching operations. These rails create a flat surface nearly half a meter wide and 20 meters long.
I think this is it. It's half a meter. It's really tiny.
Dude, I thought this was supposed to be about like Israel. So far, it's just about poop.
There's nothing new with Israel. I'm looking up Israel.
I want you to
Environmentalists.
explain it to me because I don't understand it.
What you want to? Wait. Environmentalists sue to stop SpaceX from launching Starship. Do they have a case? There's no news about Israel. There's nothing about Israel. Like, let's see, Tim. No, that's not Tim. Tim Tool.
I want you to explain Israel to me like I'm 5 years old.
Then you can try asking me questions. I mean,
What is Israel?
what is Israel? It's a country like every other country, basically, except that it's the only Jewish country.
What is its problem?
The problem is that it's poor and its neighbors are even more poor, and the region is one of the poorest on the planet, and poverty breeds violence, so the region is violent, and there's like people. Jesus. And people in general are jealous of Jews, and there's like, so
I'm dying.
yeah. But why don't you ask me questions? Like, what's the question? Why do you care about Israel?
Because my husband said I have to.
Why does he care about Israel? Why should anybody?
That's where he lives.
Right. But do you care about the United States? Like, why should you care about Israel more than the United States? Like, you're not asking me what is the United States. Explain to me the United States like I'm a 2-year-old. Like,
Because I don't need that explained to me. I already know what that is.
so why would Israel be different? Why do you
Because I
think
didn't grow up knowing what that was.
Well, Israel and the United States are.
I always thought Israel was part of another country. Like,
No. Israel is actually one of the most secluded countries in the world. It's surrounded by like Muslims and a little tiny bit of Christians, mostly Muslims, and yeah, it's surrounded by very poor countries. Like Egypt is poor, Jordan is poor, Lebanon, Syria. The whole region is like poverty out the kazoo. And Israel is poor. Relative to Europe, Israel is poor. And Europe, relative to the United States, is poor. So imagine how poor Israel's neighbors are. You cannot imagine the poverty. It's unimaginable. So, poor people hate rich people. So Israel has poor neighbors. So they hate the rich neighbor. And they come up with stories that the Jews stole everything, the Israelis stole the land. The Israelis never stole even 1 inch of land. The Israelis bought the land of Israel is completely bought and paid for. The Jews came in and they bought every inch. They never took anything by force, except for, when like other Arab countries went to war against them. So then, the Jews didn't have a choice, so they conquered, but really didn't want to. It's not like the United States. The United States conquered Texas from Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Right. Israel never did that. Israel never went and stole land on purpose. Whatever land Israel took was during a very self-defensive war. Like, I mean, just like now. I mean, Israel is always just, doing self-defense, which is, I think, a terrible strategy. Self-defense is okay in an emergency, but in general, you don't want to be in a self-defense situation. Like if somebody threatens you, he should die instantaneously. Like everybody's always threatening Israel, and Israel is like not responding. So so Israel is it it doesn't have self-respect. Like Israel doesn't respect itself enough. Israel is like a bunch of losers.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah, like if you walk down the street and somebody threatens you, you should pull out a gun and shoot them between the eyes and keep on moving. Like that's like no one should be threatening you. That should not be happening. If somebody threatens you, he, they, them, whatever, however they want to identify, need to, get a bullet between the eyes. Like, be nice or be gone. And Israel it keeps behaving as if it's okay to keep threatening it and keep firing rockets at it. And Israel, it got the world used to Israel being abused. So Israel is like it's an abused wife or an abused child that everybody's watching getting abused, and everyone has gotten used to it. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine to abuse Israel. It's fine. So, but it all starts with the region and the poverty. Like we should never forget that the whole thing is driven by poverty. Like there's Arab countries around Israel that love Israel, but they are very wealthy. Like Dubai loves Israel, and Saudi Arabia loves Israel. I mean, at least the king. So it's the poor Arabs that hate Israel. The rich Arabs love Israel. the rich Arab countries, there's some of them, they love Israel. So it's got nothing to do. So, I mean, Israel should defend itself and stuff and be proactive and attack anyone that threatens it. But why are people threatening Israel? Why do people hate Israel? It's because they're poor and Israel is relatively rich. And Israel should stress this point. But Israel itself is poor. It's not like Israel is rich. Israel is poor. It's a poor country. What's that noise you're making?
I'm not making any noise.
It's like you're dragging something. Are you dragging furniture?
No, I'm just like in the room by myself. I don't know why. I was about to take a shower, but if you already think there's noise, like that's gonna be crazy.
Wait, I didn't hear what you said. If I don't think what?
I was gonna take a shower, so now you're gonna think the noise is crazy if I go do that. I wasn't
No,
doing anything. My dog is like digging in the next room. She's like digging in
oh,
sheets.
then maybe
Like,
I'm hearing.
she's like
Okay,
a
go.
big spirit.
Anyway, you can go take a shower and I'll study. I need to study up on tensors. So go take a shower. Oh, but I can't. Yeah, I can mute you, but when you're ready to go, like text me, DM me on on
It's just
Discord.
myself. I have my own mute button.
Yeah, then you can mute yourself because you're like I'm losing my mind with the noise you're making.
It's weird. I'm not making any noise, but okay.
Eh, anyway, okay, good. So let's continue. We need to study. Let me see. Do we have any coffee left? No more coffee. I mean, all right. So we're going to study tensors. What is that? Strange. Okay, let's continue with tensors. So actually, where's history? Well, let's see the channel. Wow, 198 subscribers. That's good. That's so good. We're very close to 200 million subscribers. Okay, so let's go to history. So I was looking at quantum electrodynamics. That's interesting. But I was doing this. I was doing tensors on Faculty of Con. Let's go to tensors.
Covered contravariant and covariant tensors of rank 2, but there's a third type of tensor that can be thought of as a tensor which has both contravariant and covariant character. It's called a mixed tensor. Again, the same assumptions apply, but now we've got this.
Wait.
Greetings, students, and welcome back to another video on tensors. In the previous video,
But where's the first video? Which is the first? Is this the playlist? This is not a playlist. Where is the playlist? I hate it that there's no, like, there is a playlist. I was watching the playlist. Patreon, Twitter. Just, where's the playlist? Edit at 8:35. Okay, whatever. But where's the playlist? Where is the playlist?
Brilliant.org is a great way to interactively learn computer science.
How can I get to the playlist? I hate it. Why doesn't YouTube create like an easy access to the playlist? Like if it's part of it, okay, let's get back to no, it's useless. Okay, so I need to look for tensor. You know what? We can just go to Faculty of Con.
coordinates. According to this pattern, there's usually a square root of something and a dt outside the square root. Inside the square root,
So faculty of Khan from the series. Oh, very nice. Okay. So it noticed the series. Good. So we did introduction to tensors.
At like 273 Kelvin, which is equivalent to 0 degrees Celsius and 32
That's good. From the series, that's useless. I need the playlist. Jesus Christ, it's useless. So let's go to faculty of Khan.
Ever had professors with chicken scratch handwriting, overly drawn up lectures, and accents so thick they might as well be speaking a different language? Are you tired, in debt, and stuck in a never?
Okay. So playlist. The gamma function. Special functions, fractional calculus, complex variables, neurology, Spezialrelativität, real analysis. Wow, these are good things. Miscellaneous mathematics, differential geometry. Wow, tensor calculus. What about just tensors, period? Only tensor calculus? Anyway, let's open this one separately. We'll come back. Analytic mechanics, heat and mass, fluid mechanics, quantum mechanics, calculus variations. Wow, partial differential equations. Solve problems in electrophysiology, quantum mechanics, mathematical basis. Topics in ordinary differential equations, complex variables, nonlinear dynamics, and chaos. Very good. Okay. So this is the playlist. How can I save the playlist? Save playlist to library. Where is it? How can I access my playlist? Do I have a playlist? Playlists. Liked. Interesting. This is good music. Oh my god. But if I play the music, they're going to remove this video, so we can't do that. Anyway, interesting. Watch later. Penrose. All right, so we can always go to playlists. Let me see notifications. Ayn Rand, whatever. Ben Shapiro. This worldview is totally evil, and it's now mainstream. What else we got? Chillstream, Hodge Twins. Dr. Todd. Okay, interesting. Oh, this is interesting. Environmentalists. Yeah, I gotta watch this. So let's watch this first.
Good morning, space flight enthusiasts. I've got a quick update for you folks. I'm sure you're probably aware that we've got the 5th flight of Starship coming up, although I still haven't received a notification from the FAA that a license has been issued. I guess hopefully that's coming today. But in the meantime, environmental organizations in the Boca Chica region are again doing everything they can to try to halt this launch. And their most recent attack regards the use of the deluge system, something that has been stirring up so much controversy. And
I would not be surprised that it's Jeff Bezos who's funding all these lawsuits.
And the varying opinions on all of this is so extreme that it's really difficult to tell what the truth might be. So first, here's what SpaceX has to say about their deluge system and all of the controversy surrounding it right now. Quote, the Texas Commission on Environmental
The deluge system, yeah, it's going to hurt all the turtles,
Quality, or TCEQ, conducted a tech...
Because humanity can go to hell because the turtles are more important than humanity.
Review of Starship's water-cooled flame deflector, which uses potable drinking water and
as if it's going to hurt the turtles.
that its use does not pose risk to the environment, as we have detailed at great length in the past. We have expressed permission from TCEQ to run the system now under the conditions of the consent order and a closeout letter from the EPA on its administrative order. Save RGV acknowledged that they are aware of these straightforward facts and still filed an unwarranted and frivolous lawsuit. Okay, just a couple of quick comments about this. Again, they keep talking about potable drinking water. That doesn't matter when you're talking about the operation of rocket engines and a deluge system. Rocket engines can definitely contaminate drinking water before it gets an opportunity to leave the pad during launch, and that theoretically could be problematic, even though obviously since the TCEQ is allowing them to proceed, it isn't that big of a problem, or SpaceX has found a way to contain or limit how much of this water gets discharged into the environment. And in spite of all of my efforts, I really haven't been able to find any unbiased information as to why SpaceX got fined for this.
But it's drinking water, and you're firing rocket jets at it, but the jet is burnt. So it's like basically CO2. It's like it's probably good for the water because plants eat CO2, so it's plant food. Well, it's plant food until leftoids decided that it's actually a contaminant. Yeah, what else is new?
In the first place, because even if this deluge system presents no threat to the environment at all, completely harmless, they say they're doing everything in accordance to what the TCEQ wanted them to do, etc., they've still been fined $150,000 for violations. This happened in September. So here's what one of the local news agencies in the region said, but keep in mind this is KUOW, the local NPR network, and yeah, they are ridiculously biased as well. But what they're claiming is that they have obtained information, in some cases through Freedom of Information Act requests, that SpaceX has repeatedly disregarded environmental regulations in the region while they've been carrying out these launches of Starship. And
Environmentalism was basically created single-handedly by Nixon. So he ended up being one of the worst presidents in history.
So that's why they've been fined by the TCEQ.
If only for creating the EPA and a bunch of other government agencies that ruin our lives.
CEQ, and that's why they're getting sued by Save RGV, a local environmental organization. Also, some of the experts.
So it's actually a good thing that he got impeached.
That NPR contacted agree with me when it comes to the whole drinking water thing. They also confirmed that drinking water can be contaminated by the operation.
It's like Democrats think that they got rid of Nixon and they hurt the Republicans. They helped all of us get rid of an idiot.
Of rocket engines while it's being used on a deluge system, and this is potentially the problem. Again, I don't know what sort of impact Methalox engines could have on a deluge system's water, as opposed to things like solid rocket boosters used by.
If you don't know, then don't talk.
Space shuttle, but Courtney Gardner, an assistant professor.
I don't know what kind of damage you're doing to the universe. So what if I don't know? That's the end. That should be the end of that sentence.
Of environmental engineering at the University of Texas Austin had this to say, quote,
and you actually are doing damage to the universe.
I would not feel comfortable drinking it as drinking water, and I would not recommend that anybody.
Oh my God. All right, then don't drink it,
else would drink it either. By the way, my daughter is doing her post-grad work at the University of Texas in Austin, really likes it there, but all that having been said, it is absolutely crucial that this deluge system be used on each and every launch, and that was extremely obvious during the first launch of this rocket, which is not something that you're watching right now, but you've seen it probably enough times to know exactly what happened, and through Freedom of Information Act request, KUOW got more information about things that happened, including the destruction of the pad's restrooms apparently during the first launch in April 2023. Quote, the shockwave blast created by engine ignition and takeoff destroyed the pad restroom, the building has been leveled, and the system is non-existent, SpaceX wrote Texas environmental regulators in an email shortly after the launch that was obtained by NPR through a Freedom of Information request. Again, lots of things were destroyed during this launch, so it shouldn't be all that surprising.
Who cares that a restroom was destroyed? Why are you talking about this?
But it does indicate that SpaceX didn't do themselves any favors by trying to lift off before they had a deluge system.
This guy used to be an angry astronaut in the beginning. He made sense. At this point, he's just an Elon hater. It's incredible how he devolved. There must be a rule in the internet how everyone devolves. Everyone must devolve into an Elon hater. It has to happen.
In place, and I still think it's problematic.
I think it's because that's what the viewers want. The viewers at the end of the day just want to hate on Elon Musk. So he is just supplicating. Is there a word like that? Supplicating? Can I ask ChatGPT, is there a word supplicating? Is there a word supplicating? Supplicating, which is a valid word. The word you're thinking of is likely supplicating, which is a valid word. It is the present participle? Present participle form? There's such a word, participle? Form of the verb supplicate. Okay, meaning to ask or beg for something earnestly or humbly. All right, that's what I thought. That is what I thought. Do you know how Indians, they always emphasize the final T with every word? I don't know where that came from. I have a theory. Wait.
Contain water from the deluge system. At Wallops, for example, the water is sprayed under the rocket just above the trench. It either evaporates or is blasted downward along the flame trench and into a concrete basin where it is allowed to cool. And while it's held in that basin, it's tested for suspended solids, contaminants, and pH level in order to comply with environmental standards. Only after it's tested is it allowed to flow into a network of retention ponds before eventually being released into the environment. The entire process is dictated by a special wastewater permit issued by the state of Virginia. Kennedy Space Center follows a similar procedure and also has a permit to discharge its deluge water. Currently, at least according to the reports I'm reading, SpaceX is operating under sort of a temporary permit while they come up with a better long-term plan for containing the wastewater. And herein lies the big part of the problem. The crux of the matter is why SpaceX got fined in the first place and why a lawsuit is currently being filed by Save RGV and why they might stand a chance of stopping it if a judge decides to issue some sort of injunction. But here's the deal. In March of 2024, March 13th actually, SpaceX received a letter from the EPA. It was a formal administrative order, and in it, the EPA told SpaceX that its water deluge system was in violation of the Clean Water Act. Quote, violations were identified during a review.
The Clean Water Act. Jesus Christ. Water should be private. Any water containment unit should be private. Everything should be private. So if you're contaminating my water, it should be a private lawsuit. It should have nothing to do with the government.
The letter read,
and then, maybe you'll pay me to destroy my water. Maybe it's worth it. What do I care? I care about money at the end of the day.
Violations alleged are for discharges to the waters of the United States without a permit, unquote.
And the oceans should be private just as well.
The EPA then gave SpaceX
the last body that should own anything is government.
Days to develop a plan to mitigate the water discharges and submit a permit to Texas regulators.
The worst thing is to let government own anything.
But the EPA didn't have the authority to stop the launch. That was up to the FAA, which issued the launch license. But the FAA claims that neither SpaceX nor the EPA.
There should be no FAA. It should be a private body, and people should, like everything else, everything should be privatized. There's no reason for government to be involved in anything. It's none of government's business. If I want to fly, if something happens and I hurt someone, there's going to be a lawsuit, right? I can walk down the street and punch someone in the face, and they're going to sue me. So why do I need the government to tell me how to fly? If I hurt someone, they'll sue me, and that's going to give me an incentive not to hurt anyone, like to be careful when I fly. I don't need government to be involved. I just need there just has to be laws. If I hurt someone, I can be sued and I'll need to pay them. And that's how you get safety.
Told them about the violations. So the agency had cleared the launch, and the next day, the company fired the engines on Starship and discharged tens of thousands of gallons of water into the wetlands without a permit. And then on April 4th, SpaceX sent a letter to the EPA.
Okay, boring.
Let's say that I wanted to specify the temperature in a city, like New York, for instance. How would I do that?
Okay, so this one I heard already. Let's go to the second one.
Greetings, students, and welcome to my second video on tensor calculus. In this lesson, I'm going to continue the previous video and talk more about the definition of tensors and about the differences between tensors and matrices. If you recall the previous video, I left off with this definition of the tensor, but I didn't really talk about the transformation rules in this definition. In this video, I'm going to talk about those transformation rules in more detail. Now, there's actually two ways to describe the transformation rules of tensors. The first way.
Okay, so what is a tensor? Tensor calculus 2. What do you mean 2? Oh, the second lecture? Okay. Why is a tensor calculus? How is this relevant to calculus? I'm not getting it. It's more like linear algebra. Anyway, tensors in an m-dimensional space, a tensor of rank n is a mathematical object that has n indices, m to the n components, and obeys certain transformation rules. That's the definition of a tensor. So in an m-dimensional space, let's say we have three-dimensional space, so x, y, z, that's three-dimensional space. A tensor of rank n, so let's say rank 0. So rank 0 is just a number, a scalar, what they call. A tensor of rank 0, for example, is a mathematical object that has 0 indices. So a sub nothing is equal to the temperature, for example. That's the example he gave. m to the n components. So 3 to the 0, that's one component. A component is just a number, like the temperature, and obeys certain transformation rules. So for example, if I look at the temperature from any direction, right, it doesn't change the temperature. It doesn't matter from what direction I'm observing the temperature is always the same. That's zero rank. That's rank 0 tensor. Now rank 1, so again, in an m-dimensional, we're always going to be in 3 dimensions, he said. So in a 3-dimensional space, xyz, a tensor of rank 1 is a mathematical object that has 1 indices. So, and m to the n components, let's see. So m, 3 dimensions, times 1, so it's 3 components. So he said a vector is rank 1, right? So basically a point in space. So if you want to talk about a point in space, a single point, that is a tensor. It's a vector. A vector is a tensor of rank 0. So it's an object that has 1 indices. So let's say the vector v, it has, right, one index, and the index is either probably x or y or z, right? You want to specify a point in 3 dimensions, you need to specify its x, its y, and its z. That's the right, we said here 1 index. So every value has 1 index, every component, and it has m to the n. M is 3 to the 1, so that's 3 components, right? There's a value of x, a value of y, and a value of z. It obeys certain transformation rules. So again, it shouldn't matter where I'm observing a point from. That point is going to be the same point. Doesn't matter where I'm observing from. That's the transformation. Okay. Let's go to the next step. So the next step is rank 2. So this was rank 1. Rank 0 is just a scalar. Rank 1 is a vector, a point in space. Now rank 2. What is rank 2? Rank 2, that's really complicated. So again, in a 3-dimensional space, xyz, a tensor of rank 2 is a mathematical object that has 2 indices. So, okay, and which for us is 2. So there's going to be 2 indices for each component. And how many components? Well, 3 to the 2, that's 3 times 3. So it's 9 components and obeys certain transformation rules. Okay, so the example he gave is the stress tensor. So the stress tensor is a tensor of rank 2. So if you want to describe, wait, somebody's talking. Mr. Half knowledge is worse. Oh, look at this. Half knowledge is worse than ignorance. Thomas B. Macaulay. Okay, I disagree. Half knowledge is better than, it's much better than ignorance. How could you say that? That's ridiculous. But if that's how you feel, you know, I don't know how to help you with that. Obviously, he's referencing me because that's all they got. They can only reference the person. Like when they debate me, when that guy, Mr. President, oh, I muted him by the way, so he can't talk. So when I debated him, I mopped the floor with his face. So very quickly he realized that he's not getting anywhere in the debate. So that's all they got. Just attack, attack, attack. Very nice. Very
What
nice.
happened?
What?
I just got like what happened.
There's this guy, Mr. This is his original name was XYZ.
Bad.
And what?
Nothing.
So, like in the beginning, he tried to actually debate me, and I kept mopping the floor with his face thoroughly. So, so he degenerated into personal attacks, nothing but personally attacking me. That's all he's got. Like the rest of them, leftoids, that's all they got. Personal attacks. They can't win a debate, so they just attack you. It's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Let's continue. Anyway, we're studying tensors. So we're up to, so we're doing rank 2. So rank 2, you're making immense noise. So rank 2, in, Amber, you're making noise.
I'm barely doing anything, so I don't know what to do.
Okay. So we're doing tensors. Do you like tensors?
I don't even know what that is.
It's basically to describe tension, like if you like if like every place, like Einstein said that space or space-time, it has tension everywhere. It's curved. There's like a stress tensor. There's like stress everywhere in the universe. At every place there is some stress. Like even though it's like it looks like there's no stress, like air, like space. Space itself, he said, is stressed. And the stress curves space. And this curvature is what we experience as gravity. So why does the apple fall? Because space is stressed. What do you think about that? What's your opinion? Do you understand?
Like I guess.
So I disagree with Einstein. It doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't make any sense that the apple falls because of stress. Like in my opinion, it's not stress, it's the flow of ether through the apple. There is a fluid that fills the universe that flows into massive bodies and drag things along for the ride. So I think we should be able to reinterpret Einstein's stress tensor as a fluid flow tensor. And that's I think that's the correct interpretation, because otherwise, why is the apple falling? The apple is falling because of stress. Stress doesn't make an apple fall. Only flow. Amber, there's so much noise coming out of your coming from your side.
I don't know what you want me to do.
I don't know. Like, don't you have like a recording studio?
No, I genuinely don't.
Oh. Anyway. So so um so rank 2 so rank 2 is the stress tensor. So we have 3 to the 2, meaning 9 components. Why do we have 9 components? Wait, we need more. 9 is not enough for a stress tensor. Because we have 6. We need 6. Wait, a cube has 6 faces, and each face we need to describe 4 directions. So we need 6 times 4. That's 24. We need 24. Don't we need 24 components? But it's only 9. Why is it only 9? It's like only 1, 2, 3 times 3. 3 is enough, I guess. Right, so we're only describing 3 of the 6 faces. Are there 6 faces to a cube? Yeah, there's 6 faces. Wait, so 3 to the 2. Let's get back to the first lecture.
Let's say that I wanted to specify the temperature. After all, they're acting in the same x direction.
So it's only 9. So, oh, okay. So he's not thinking about a tiny cube. He's thinking about a point, and that point is experiencing stress in the x direction, in the y direction, in the z direction, and the stress, no, in the x face. Stress in the x face, so this is the x face, for example, and it's experiencing like shear, and tension. Okay, so it's experiencing 3 directions of stress in the x face. So there's only one x face. Okay. It's not like an infinitesimal cube. Interesting. And the same goes for the y face. The y face is experiencing y tension, z shear, and x shear. And the same goes for the z face. The z face is experiencing z tension, y shear, and x shear. So 3 forces in the z face. So this is the x face, the y face, and the z face, and the x direction, the y direction, the z direction. Okay, so 9, perfect. So 9 components, each one has 2 indices. He wants to say more stuff. How do magnets work? Wait, Andrew, are you watching? Streaming. You want to join? Are you listening? He wants to know how magnets work.
That's a meme. He's just fucking you.
No, it's a different Andrew. This is an Andrew nice person. Very nice guy. Andrew Garfield Lover 82. Who's Andrew Garfield?
Wasn't he a president?
Oh, there was a president, Andrew Garfield. I didn't know that.
There was.
Anyway, he's typing. I don't have a debate topic. I don't have a debate. Also, I'm busy. Okay. Are you studying chem? Like he said that he's failing chem for some reason. I don't remember why. So I told him that we can study together. If you want, then we can study together. I need to study chemistry. I don't know any chemistry. I need to study high school over.
High school really developed us. We didn't really work.
I can't hear anything you're saying. Like your audio is. You might as well. I don't know. I can't understand what you're saying. Like you're breaking up and there is echo. Shaw, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying.
That's your fault because I didn't do anything differently.
Okay, now I understood what you said. So you said that's your fault. You didn't do anything differently. Okay. Okay, he's still typing. Okay, I may take up your offer some other time, but alas, who uses alas? What I'm studying right now isn't that interesting. And he's typing again. Oh my God. Why is he typing so slowly? Jesus. Jesus, help me. Anyway, so now we understand the rank 2. So as soon as you see two indices, you know it's rank 2. So this is rank 2 tensor. It seems to be enantiomers, which is visualizing it in 3D. I don't know what is enantiomers. Visualizing it in 3D.
Now
I can't hear you, Amber. I'm sorry. What did you say?
nothing.
Okay. So enantiomer. Let's just pick up sinus. What does sinus say? Later, I can. I think. Okay, great. So I'm gonna do ChatGPT architecture when sinus is available. And enantiomer, lactic acid left, and R minus lactic acid right are non-superposable mirror images of each other. In chemistry, an enantiomer, whatever. Okay. However, if 4 different groups, okay, he's doing like real chemistry. Where is sounds really interesting. I think he's like pre-med, or is that just a physical or a normal chemistry? I don't know. Anyway, back to this guy. Okay, and that's all we need, I think. I think you can add one more dimension. If you add time, I think it becomes 4 by, is it 4 by 4? If you add time, let's see the definition. So he said the number of components is dimensions to the power of rank. So 4 dimensions, yeah, it's 16. So 16 would be 4 by 4. Okay. So it's so a tensor is always like a square matrix because it's always squared. It's the number of dimensions to the power of the indices. Oh, so it's either a square or a cube or whatever the next dimension of a cube is, like a 4-dimensional cube. The next the next tensor is rank 3. So in 3 dimensions, rank 3, that's 3 to the power of 3, 9 to the power. So what is 3 to the power of 3? So 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So it's a cube. So the next rank is a cube of 27 components, each with 3 indices. What is that like? What is that describing? It might be a cube. Yeah, it's a cube. It looks like a cube. I think it's the next thing he's showing. Where is the cube? There it is. So the next, so here is the cube. This is a tensor of rank 3. It's a 3D array. Okay. He said you can look at it as it's basically one tensor, another tensor, and it's a bunch of tensors or it's a bunch of matrices. But what is it describing? What could you say it's describing? It's a good question, but it's not important because we don't need rank 3. We're not doing rank 3 in general relativity, so we're done with that. Okay, so the next lecture.
Greetings, students, and welcome to my second video on.
Okay, so now I understand the definition. So we understand the definition. We worked it out in 3 dimensions in rank 0, 1, and 2. Okay.
Transformation rules in this definition. In this video, I'm going to talk about those transformation rules in more detail. Now, there's actually 2 ways to describe.
So I can already feel that GR is interpretable with the ether, which makes it mechanical. So whenever somebody says curvature of space-time, I can reject that and just say that it's just the flow of ether. That's all that it's describing, because that's just the interpretation of the math. So you can, however you interpret a stress tensor, I can interpret as the ether flow tensor. So instead of calling it a tensor, I can call it ether flow, the ether flower or the flower. Because you can, right, in fluid dynamics, you can still use a tensor in fluid dynamics. There's no difference. It's not, a tensor is not just for stress, for tension. It could describe anything you want. Let's look it up. Has anyone ever described, ever used, let me see. What do you want? Dr. Alpha. I don't remember who Dr. Alpha is. This is how they ruined Spider-Man. It's like, why did they do this with Spider-Man? What's the point? Like, why ruin Spider-Man? Never in the comics did Spider-Man behave this way. So bizarre. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Like, they always ruin characters. Okay. So the next question is, has anyone, let's use a tensor in fluid dynamics. Tensor in fluid dynamics. See, other people have looked for this. Okay, that's visualizing. What is a tensor? But can you use a tensor for fluid dynamics? Graduate fluid lessons series. But is he using a tensor? Tensor, Einstein summation, strain tensor, and its weird formula. Fluid fundamentals. Introduction to stress tensor fluid mechanics. That's what I'm interested in. Oh, stress tensor in a Newtonian fluid. Let's see this.
Hi guys, may God bless us all with all the success we deserve. By the way, the picture on your screen is a fluid parcel. You may not be able to imagine what the shape of a fluid parcel looks like. How about thinking of this picture as a box-shaped jelly? When our fingertip pushes one part of the jelly box will deform neatly according to the direction of the force. Whatever the shape, it seems like the volume of the jelly box is constant, because basically jelly consists of water, which is an incompressible substance. Some of the surfaces are displaced, translationally moved, or bubbled. This means that each surface of the jelly experiences a combination of normal stress and shear stress.
That's fluid mechanics, but that's not fluid dynamics. So that's not good. I need fluid dynamics. Stress tensor in Newtonian fluid.
So for an incompressible material, we have two laws: conservation of mass, conservation of momentum. Conservation of mass tells us the divergence of the velocity field is equal to 0, and conservation of momentum is our statement F equals ma, which tells us the density times the material derivative velocity equals the body force due to gravity plus the divergence of the stress tensor. If you think about how many equations it is, this is one equation. And the conservation of momentum is 3 equations because 3 components of velocity. However, we have too many unknowns in this problem because if you remember, the stress tensor itself had 9 components, right? We had our little cube with 3 forces on each face. So in order to close the problem, we need some model for the stress tensor T. This will come through what we call our constitutive law. So as with all the other problems we'll study in this course, when we do our conservation laws, like with mass, momentum, or energy, it's never sufficient. We always need some constitutive law of the material that gives us something. In the case of heat flow.
So if he mentions momentum, that means... Oh, Amber left. Okay, she can come back whenever she wants. So since he's using momentum, there's mass. That means that flow dynamics might be involved or should be involved.
We needed Fourier's law, which relates heat flux to the temperature field. Now we need a constitutive law that somehow relates the stress tensor back to the velocity field. So the simplest one for a fluid that we can have is what we call an Euler fluid. And the constitutive law would be quite simple. It would tell us that the stress tensor is only given by the pressure, which acts inward on each face by the same amount. So our little picture, if we imagine our little cube, we just have the pressure acting in that way. So this would be a fluid that would have no viscosity. It's not possible for this fluid to transmit any sort of shear forces by any sort of sliding motion. So this isn't necessarily very realistic, but it's kind of the simplest thing we can do is assume that the only internal stress is due to pressure. If we did that and we plug this constitutive law back into our conservation of momentum, we would find we're left with the following equation, which is our mass times acceleration equals the body force due to gravity minus the gradient of the pressure field. While this isn't necessarily an equation that we use very often, it is used.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I need for the ether.
So it's something we will come back to.
So the ether is a Euler fluid. So, but that's not Einstein's fluid. So Einstein actually has stresses, shear stresses. So that's different than the way I conceptualize it. But this is a more generalized fluid. So Newtonian fluid is more generalized. It has shear. So I guess I could use Newtonian fluid.
However, we do see that we've now closed the problem because now we have 3 equations for momentum, right? X, Y, and Z directions of velocity. We have 4 unknowns because we don't know the velocity field. We don't know the pressure.
Because I know we have frame dragging. We've noticed frame dragging. So this might be more realistic.
Since this is an incompressible material, we assume the density is constant and is a known material property.
1 second, I just noticed that there is like a bug flying in my room. So let me go get a swatter. 1 second. Let's take a bathroom break. 1 minute. All right. Okay. All right. Oh, I didn't share this. I wanted to share it. All right. One person watching. Who's watching me? Who's watching me? Watching you? So this is curious.
So we have 4 unknowns from this equation, but remember we have the additional equation up here, which is conservation of mass. So once we put in our constitutive law, we have 4 equations and 4 unknowns.
But we already see that it's possible to use a stress tensor to describe fluid flow.
The constitutive law that we'll use the most is that of the Newtonian fluid. We discussed this a little bit previously. So we discussed before that we have the following.
Which is basically the foundation. You could say that you can derive gravity, simple gravity, certainly Newtonian gravity from Euler's fluid, but you could use Newtonian fluid to derive GR.
Situation. That if I took a plate above another solid surface, I filled the gap with fluid, and I pulled with a force, that the force that we would measure would end up being proportional to some coefficient that we call the
force. Wait, what is this? This is the fluid, so what's this? I don't get it. I don't understand this diagram.
Unknowns. The constitutive law that we'll use the most is that of the Newtonian fluid. We discussed this a little bit previously. So we discussed before that we had the following situation. That if I took a plate above another solid surface, I filled the gap with fluid.
Okay, so there's a plate that he's applying a force to the plate. I don't know what is H. And there's a fluid. I don't know what this is. I mean, this is some problem that he has described before, so I don't know what's going on.
And I pulled with a force, that the force that we would measure would end up being proportional to some coefficient that we call the viscosity times the velocity with which I pull that plate divided by the gap height. This is just
so there is a viscosity. I don't want my fluid to have a viscosity because there's energy loss in viscosity. That's what I was afraid of.
Just experimentally observed that if I pull on something faster, the force is greater. The generalization of this for an incompressible material is the following. Just like with Euler's equation, we have pressure acting inward, but we have an additional component to our stress tensor due to velocity gradients. So what do we mean by the velocity gradient? Well, the gradient is a vector operator.
Well, the velocity gradient, exactly what it sounds like, yeah. So the velocity, I guess, at the plate is the velocity of the plate. And the velocity, I don't know what this is. So the viscosity gives you 0 velocity when you touch something. So you can only have a velocity gradient starting from velocity equals basically to the velocity of whatever you're touching, whatever the fluid is touching.
The velocity is a vector, so the result of the velocity gradient is a tensor. So the velocity gradient tensor has 9 components, which is the derivative of each component of the velocity, u, v, and w, in the directions x, y, and z. And you can see that we're adding the velocity gradient to the velocity gradient transpose, so that's just this matrix kind of flipped on its side. And we add those two things together, the resulting stress matrix or tensor, the resulting stress tensor is symmetric.
It's good that he's speeding up when he's writing stuff.
So if I simply take the sum of the velocity gradient tensor and its transpose, I get the following, where these other elements on the off diagonal here, these 3 elements are symmetric with those 3 elements. Now, if I take our constitutive law for the Newtonian fluid, and I take its divergence, and I carried all my little operations out, I would find the following. The divergence of the stress tensor is minus the gradient of the pressure plus the viscosity times the velocity of the del squared operator operating on velocity. This is good for an incompressible material, and it should not be considered a fundamental law of nature. It's just something that we observe to be true for a wide number of simple fluids, such as air, water, or oil, and a variety of other fluids as well. It's true that for air, for gases, simple gases, one can actually resort to statistical mechanics and looking at sort of molecular models of gases and actually derive this kind of law and derive the coefficient of viscosity. We're not going to worry about this in this course. We'll just treat this as an empirical law, which we observe to be true for a variety of materials. If we substitute the divergence of the stress tensor back into our conservation law of momentum, we get the following. Coupled with conservation of mass, this would be a complete statement of a problem, because now we have 3 equations for momentum, 1 equation for mass, so 4 total equations, and we have 4 unknowns, the 3 components of the velocity and the pressure. If we write this out in component form, it's useful to do that once, so let's just go ahead and do that. So now you see why I love vector notation. So we said that our constitutive laws of stress tensor is equal to minus pressure. Here I'll write I as the identity matrix, like right one along the diagonal and zeros everywhere else, plus the viscosity times the gradient of the velocity vector, plus its transpose. So let's think about this a little bit. We're saying that stress is related to gradients and velocity. So let's think a little bit about what gradients and velocity means. So let's start by imagining 2 points, A, B, separated by distance dx. Now let's just assume for the sake of argument that our velocity vector in this case only has a component in the x direction. It's only a function of x. So our point A at some later time moves to point little a, the red point, and point B moves to point little b, the other red point. So we can discuss the strain of this. We define as the change in length. So here let's just define this length as L. So the change in length L minus the original length dx divided by the original length dx. The initial distance is dx, the final distance is L. So let's actually figure out what all these distances are. The change in length, you can see, we just need to subtract this length from this length. So let's do that. So point B has moved from here to here in some time delta t, so some small amount of time. So this distance that it moves here would be given by the velocity at point B times delta t. Whereas this distance that A moves is the velocity at point A times delta t. So that means our total length L will be given by the distance that B moves, so this total distance from big A to little b, minus that distance, which is u at point A, by the small change in velocity from point A to B, divided by dx, which we also know how far this point has moved.
The question is, what's the conclusion?
Over in this direction, and the x component is variable in y. We see that that rotates 2 lines over in this direction, so it starts vertical. So we'll consider a two-dimensional. First of all, since the velocity u has to be 0 at every point along the surface, if we're evaluating n dot t, take the product of n dot t, we're left with a vector, right, which is our stress vector, which is going to equal the x component is just going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this makes any sense for the way I see it. So he's using a tensor because he is assuming viscosity, which makes sense, but I think viscosity causes loss of energy, so I don't know. Don't know. Notifications, Jordan Peterson, Nietzsche, Hitler, God, psychopathy, suffering, meaning. What else we got? Nothing interesting. Thunderfoot hating Elon Musk. What else is new? The aliens are dying from climate change to contact us. Yeah. The catch mechanism. Okay. Let's get back to this guy. Just GR, straight up GR.
The transformation rules of tensors. The first way is probably the most famous one that physicists love to use, which says that a tensor is a mathematical object that transforms like a tensor. The second and probably the most helpful way is that a tensor is an object that is invariant, i.e. it does not change, under a change of coordinate systems. But when we do change the coordinate system, the components of that tensor must change according to a special set of mathematical rules. Now, the first way to describe transformation rules is pretty bad. It's ridiculously vague and terrible for beginners. That's why we're going to use the second way to describe transformation rules for tensors, that tensors are invariant under a change of coordinate systems. And in order to do that, let's go back to the tensors that we discussed in the previous video. We'll begin by looking at the temperature in New York. If my coordinate system starts out like this with coordinates x, y, and z, and if I change the coordinates to get a new system with x prime, y prime, and z prime, then will the change in coordinate systems change the temperature? Of course not. Temperature is a scalar, so it's obviously going to be completely separate from our coordinate system. No matter what coordinate system we use to measure position, the temperature in New York will stay the same, whether I have this prime coordinate system, the old coordinate system, or any other coordinate system. The temperature will be invariant when we change coordinates. Let's go to our displacement vector. Recall that this vector represented the displacement from the JFK airport, point A, to the Empire State Building, point B. Now, I originally drew my xyz coordinate system like this, which meant that the displacement vector could be described as the sum of three components, negative 19i plus 12j plus 0.45j. But what happens if I change my coordinate system to x prime, y prime, and z prime like this? Well, my displacement in the new coordinate system will change. It'll become more like 22.4 I prime plus 0 j prime minus 0.45 k prime, where I prime, j prime, and k prime are the unit vectors in the new prime coordinates. So changing the coordinates does change the way that I end up writing the vector, but does it change the vector itself? Well, no, the vector still points from A to B even under this coordinate change. In fact, no matter what new coordinate system we adopt, the vector will continue to point from A to B. The vector itself will not change under a coordinate transformation. So if I change my coordinate system, if I change the way my axes are oriented, that's not going to change the fact that the vector points from A to B. A and B are still fixed where they are no matter how I rotate or translate my axes. So it would be accurate to say that the vector is invariant when we change coordinate systems. It does not change when we change coordinates. Again, a coordinate transformation does change the way we write the vector in the new coordinate system, but it does not change the vector itself. Let's go now to our stress tensor, our rank 2 tensor. This stress tensor has to do with the stresses that act on the steel beam and cause it to deform in certain ways. Now, last time I used the XYZ coordinate system to write an expression for the stress tensor P. Suppose now that this time I make a new X prime, Y prime, Z prime coordinate system, and the expression for my stress tensor now becomes P prime. Now, the question is, if my stress tensor...
1 second.
Let's go now to our stress tensor, our rank 2 tensor. Say that the vector is invariant when we change coordinate systems.
Okay, so all he's saying is that definition of a tensor is that it's something that doesn't change under a coordinate transformation. So it doesn't matter where you look at it from, it's the same. So temperature is the same, a vector from to, like from Kennedy to whatever, Empire State Building, it's the same. And now the stress tensor is going to show that it's the same.
It does not change when we change coordinates. Again, a coordinate transformation does change the way we write the vector in the new coordinate system, but it does not change the vector itself. Let's go now to our stress tensor, our rank 2 tensor. This stress tensor has to do with the stresses that act on the steel beam and cause it to deform in certain ways. Now, last time I used the XYZ coordinate system to write an expression for the stress tensor P. Suppose now that this time I make a new X prime, Y prime, Z prime coordinate system, and the expression for my stress tensor now becomes P prime. Now, the question is, if my stress tensor P, if my old stress tensor P deforms the beam in a certain way, will my new stress tensor P prime under the different coordinate system deform the beam differently? No, of course not, because the deforming forces that are being exerted on the various surfaces inside the beam don't change the way they deform the beam when you transform the coordinate system. In fact, the change in coordinates has nothing to do with how the beam deforms. They're completely unrelated to each other. The manner by which I write those forces, the manner by which I represent the stress tensor and its component, that will change, but the stress tensor itself will intrinsically remain the same in terms of how it acts on the beam. So once again, a change of coordinates does not change my stress tensor. Okay, so how can we intuitively picture what happens to a tensor when we change coordinate systems? Well, recall that in the last video, I talked about how in order to fully specify a component of a rank n tensor, you need to specify the magnitude of that component, as well as the n basis vectors corresponding to that component. You can, of course, then repeat this process for all the components of the tensor to fully specify the whole tensor. Now, what happens if I apply a coordinate transformation given by some operator L to some random tensor? Well, the magnitude of the tensor components will then transform according to the operator L, whereas the basis vectors will transform according to L inverse. So in the end, what ends up happening is that when you specify the tensor in the new coordinate system, you once again combine the magnitude of the components.
Wait, what? So he says, suppose L is a coordinate transformation operator. So L is a transformation operator applied to a tensor. Magnitude of tensor components will transform according to L. Basis vectors will transform according to L inverse. What are you talking about? I don't have it.
Transformed by L, and the basis vectors transformed by L inverse. And when you combine them, the effects of L and L inverse end up canceling, and the full tensor that you end up with in the new coordinate system is the same as the tensor you had in the old coordinate system. So this is just a way to intuitively picture what happens to a tensor during a coordinate transformation. Its components change, but its basis vectors change in an opposite fashion, so the tensor ends up remaining the same as it was before the change in coordinate system.
I don't understand the definition.
So, just some quick notes on tensors versus matrices. I said in the last video that you can use matrices to represent rank 2 tensors. Remember, matrices are just collections of numbers packaged inside brackets. When I specify a matrix, I can just write down the matrix and its elements. I don't have to add anything on top of that. But when I specify a tensor, I can't just write down A, B, C, D and be done with it. I need to specify the coordinate system, the components, and the basis vectors that each of those components correspond.
So where he says X, that means no good. So check, yeah, this is good. This is no good tensor.
So in that sense, a tensor is much more than a matrix. A tensor requires more detailed specification, and it also has these transformation properties where it's invariant under a change of coordinate systems. It has physical significance. A matrix, however, is not defined according to these properties. It's just a collection of numbers. Anyway, that should do it for the lesson. I didn't really go too much into the mathematical formulas for tensor transformation because in order to do that, I need to talk about Einstein notation first, and that's what I'll do in the next video. I'd like to thank the following patrons for supporting me at the $5 level or higher. I've linked my... Let's talk about Einstein notation because this is one of the most crucial things you need to know if you're going to get anywhere in tensor.
Okay, all right. These are very good lectures. I've seen many lectures on tensors. Usually they are terrible. So far, very practical. Like other people that teach tensors, like I don't like it's pure math. Like I don't know, like I don't know where they're taking me. But this guy, he's very fixated on where we're going. It feels like we're going to general relativity.
For calculus. I'm going to describe Einstein notation using 4 simple rules that should allow you to tackle most problems. Let's talk about Einstein notation, because this is one of the most crucial things you need to know if you're going to get anywhere in tensor calculus. I'm going to describe Einstein notation.
Why does he call it tensor calculus? Isn't it just tensor? Tensor is math. Why is it calculus? What do you mean by calculus? Do you mean like derivatives, or do you mean thought?
Using 4 simple rules that should allow you to tackle most problems in this area. So let's begin. When you're starting off, Einstein notation can be pretty annoying. I would use a stronger word, but this is a family show, and I'd much rather have 4-year-olds watch this video than those Spider-Man Elsa videos. Anyway, one of the reasons Einstein notation is annoying is that in addition to using indices as subscripts, so like a sub I, for example, which you might have already done quite frequently, you're also using indices as superscripts. And this can be really confusing because when you're new to tensors, you tend to confuse the superscripts for powers, but they're not powers, they're superscripts. In fact, for the rest of the series, if I ever want to raise something to a power, I'm going to be using parentheses. So a super I to the power 2 or a super I squared would be written like this, but a with a simple I will be written like this, a super I. Now, to be quite honest, I'm not really aware of a short way.
So there's no distinction between super I and subscript, superscript and subscript. So super and sub I, there's no distinction. Sometimes it's superscript, sometimes it's subscript. Okay.
Way of saying superscript indices, I could just say a superscript I, but that takes more time, and I'm too lazy to say the extra syllable, so I'm just going to call it a super I. Let's move on from basic indexing to more involved topics. In tensor calculus, a lot of expressions will involve summation over particular indices. This means you'll see lots of expressions like this, where I have the sum from I equals 1 to I equals 3 of a sub I times x sub I. This is, of course, just a1x1 plus a2x2 plus a3x3. In Einstein notation, when we write summations like these,
so this is a sub I x sub I. So it's a1 x1 a2 x2. Okay, that's easy. In Einstein, a sub I x sub I from I1 to 3.
we don't use the sigma symbol, we just write a sub I times x sub I. And this brings me to the foundational rule of Einstein notation, which is that if you have a single term, then any index that is repeated twice is summed over the positive integers, usually from 1 to 3. It's 1 to 3 mainly because...
So any index that's repeated twice is summed over 1, 2, 3.
There are 3 dimensions.
3, okay.
And we tend not to go higher than that for the most part. For example, if we have aij times bj, then according to rule 1 of Einstein...
So aij, bj. So j shows up twice. So any twice repeated index in a single term is summed over. So aij, bj is the sum of, so it's always ai, but it's, the j is 1, 2, 3. So it's ai1b1 plus ai2b2 plus ai3b3.
notation, this term would be equivalent to ai1b1 plus ai2b2 plus ai3b3. Now, just a couple of things to go over here. The first is that the index that is...
So the I doesn't change, but the J we're summing over. So by the way, he's going to say we can switch the J to an R, and it doesn't mean that there's no significance to the J. You can use anything you want for the J.
That is summed over, in this case, the index J is called a dummy index.
It's a dummy index. Doesn't mean anything. It's like, it's irrelevant to the rest of the equation. So it could theoretically repeat in the equation and be irrelevant to the rest of any appearance it makes in the same equation.
A dummy index is an index that is repeated twice in a term, and I can replace a dummy index like J with...
So once a dummy index is repeated twice in a term, it's a dummy index, and you can replace it with anything you want.
Any letter or index that I want, as long as that letter or index satisfies 2 conditions. The first is that the letter or index cannot already be in the term I have, so I can't replace my dummy...
It can't be in the same term, but it could be in other terms.
Index J by I. The second condition...
So you can't say AII, obviously.
Is that the replacement index is also defined over the same range that the original dummy index is defined over, so in this case, from 1 to 3. So for example, another way I could write aij times b sub j would be to replace j by something like r. So I get a sub ir times b sub r, where r varies from 1 to 3. This replacement, because it satisfies both of these conditions, is valid. So I've talked about dummy indices like j, but what about indices like I? Well, I is something we call the free index. Like the dummy index, the free index can take on any value that the dummy index can take on, so 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so I is called the free index. So we have a dummy index and the free index.
For example, the difference is that the free index is not summed over, which means that it can only take on one of these values in a given term. In other words, I can be either 1, 2, 3, etc., but it can only be one of these numbers and not multiple. Now, unlike the dummy index, the free index occurs only once in a given term, and we cannot always replace the free index by another free index. For example, I can't just replace the free index I in a sub ij times b sub j by another free index k and necessarily get the same result. K could be 2, for instance, and I could be 1. With a dummy index, though, you can perform a replacement without too much trouble. So just to summarize, a dummy index is summed over, it occurs twice, and it can be replaced by another dummy index. A free index is not summed over, it only occurs once, and it cannot be replaced by another free index. These definitions of dummy and free indices, I'm going to call them rule 2. Now, the third rule of Einstein notation is pretty simple. I just said that a free index occurs once in a term and a dummy index occurs twice. The third rule says that we cannot have 3 or more of the same index in a single term. So, for example, we're allowed to write a sub ij times b sub ij, but we can't write a sub ii times b sub ij or a sub ij times b sub jj. In Einstein.
All right, so this is confusing. No index may occur 3 or more times in a given term. So I wish I could. The way YouTube works is you can't like the what do you call it? The progress bar. So the progress bar is always getting in the way. So when you pause, you can't see everything. Anyway, no index may occur 3 times. So I don't. The first one is okay. The second one, like the I shows up 3 times, or the J shows up 3 times. Okay.
Notation, you can only have free indices that occur once or dummy indices that occur twice in a single term. There's no such thing as an index that occurs 3 or more times in the same term. If you do see an index that occurs 3 or more times in the same term, then either you can simplify things and prevent that same index from being seen so many times, or you made a mistake somewhere. Just a quick note that when we count indices in a single term, we're counting superscripts and subscripts together. We're not separating the counts. What I mean by that is if I have something like a sub j super j, then j is not a free index. J is a dummy index because it occurs twice, once in the subscript plus once in the superscript. So we actually have to sum over j in this term. And if I have something like a super jj sub I, then I is the free index and j is the dummy index. Again, we're counting superscripts and subscripts together. Another thing to note is that when you see 2 terms like this combined together, then you might be immediately inclined to say, hey, that's not right. The index j has occurred 4 times in this expression, which goes against rule number 3. And you would be partially correct. The index j has occurred 4 times in this expression, but that's not actually in violation of rule 3. The reason is that this whole expression consists of 2 terms being added together. Rule 3 says that no index may occur 3 or more times in a single term, but if multiple terms are added together, the index counter basically
Yeah, multiple terms are right. Each term is its own universe. That's fine.
Resets after each term. That means the number of times j occurs is actually 2 in the first term and 2 in the second term, which makes it a dummy variable in both terms. This is fully within the legal limits allowed by Rule 3, which only limit the index appearances to single terms. Terms that are added together aren't actually counted in this situation, they're counted separately. The fourth rule of Einstein notation is that when you have an equation involving terms in Einstein notation, the free indices on the left must match the free indices on the right. Again, just to remind you, free indices are indices that only occur once in a given term. So according to this rule, an equation like x sub I equals a sub ij times b sub j is fine, because on the right-hand side, your only free index is I, and on the left, your only free index is also I. Remember, a free index only occurs once. In addition, if we had something like the second equation, then again, the only free index on the right-hand side is I, because if you look at the terms.
All right, 1 second. In an equation involving Einstein's notation, the free indices on both sides must match. So you have 2 sides of an equal. I guess sides means of the equal sign. So if you have I on the left, the free one is the I. Free I, that's good. Then he has AI, that's the free I. And again, KI, I guess, it's the free I. Then it's fine. And again, I. As long as it only shows up once. So this is interesting. J shows up twice, K shows up twice, I shows up. I guess this is legal. So you can have A, B, X, K, I, K, J. Okay.
J appears twice in this first term, and K appears twice in both the first and second terms. This means that J and K are dummy indices, but I only appears once in the first term and once in the...
Oh, so K shows up twice, J shows up twice, so K and J are dummy indices, but I shows up only once, and it matches the left side, so it's fine.
The second term, so therefore it's a free index. And on the left-hand side, I is also the only free index, which means that both sides are consistent. However, if we had these equations, then in both cases, there's an inconsistency between the free indices on either side of the equality. In the first equation, I is the only free index on the left, but I and J are free indices on the right.
Okay, so I and J show, there's 2, right? So free I, and J.
So this first equation is written incorrectly. It's meaningless in Einstein notation. In the second equation, J is the only free index on the left, but I is the only free index.
And I'm just trying to think, right? Because you're supposed to sum. How would you sum this? I mean, theoretically, you could say that this is the sum of A sub I 1 plus A sub 1 2 plus A sub 1 3. You could say, but for some reason, that's not legal in Einstein notation. Okay, free J. And here, J doesn't show up. The I is free, so you can't have that.
Index on the right. Again, there's a mismatch, and this equation is wrong. Finally, in this third equation, I is the only free index on the left, but I and J...
I is free on the left, I is free on the right, but J is also free, so that's not allowed.
Are free indices on the right, which again makes this equation wrong. Anyway, that should do it for this video.
What?
J is the only free index on the left, but I is the only free index on the right. Again, there's a mismatch, and this equation is wrong. Finally, in this third equation, I is the only free index on the left, but I and J are free indices on the right, which again makes this equation wrong.
Yeah, J.
Anyway, that should do it for this video. In the next lesson, I'm going to continue with Einstein notation with a few more examples and identities. I'd like to thank the following patrons for supporting me at the $5 level or higher. Let me take some time to explain how brackets work in Einstein notation. Say you have a quantity that looks like Aij times Bi plus Cj.
1 second, let me like this video, like and share.
Plus Ek. How do you determine what the free index is and what the dummy index is? Well, here's what you do. In the first step, you look at the term outside the parentheses, the Aij, and combine it separately with each of the terms inside the parentheses. You do not multiply them separately and add them because remember, we haven't proven any distributive properties in Einstein notation. All you do is combine them for the purpose.
Wait, I have to. 1 second. Maybe we should chew some gum. I came here to chew some bubble gum. Okay. Let's see who's watching us. One person is watching. Oh, what's this? Why your name is like, well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not so important. What I wanted to do, yeah, check the audio. Check is good. Yeah, like,
Is combine them for the purpose.
Wait, I have to. Okay, audio is good. Notifications. Are you spending too much time on math problems? Interesting. Okay. Back to this guy.
It's work in Einstein notation. Say you have a quantity that looks like Aij times Bi plus Cj plus Dk. How do you determine what the free index is and what the dummy index is? Well, here's what you do. In the first step, you look at the term outside the parentheses.
So now we're dealing with brackets. So the topic is Einstein notation proofs, examples, and the Kronecker delta. Kronecker delta. Nice name. So brackets in Einstein notation. So Aij times Bi Cj dk. So this is Aij times Bi. So I shows up twice, J once. Aij Cj, I shows up once. And then Aijk. How do we determine what the indices mean? I don't know. I'm trying to think. What is, right? Because Einstein says we're summing over, I guess, Ijk from, I don't know who's free. The only one that's free here is K. But sometimes I and J are free.
Parentheses, the Aij, and combine it separately with each of the terms inside the parentheses. You do not multiply them separately and add them because remember, we haven't proven any distributive properties in Einstein notation. All you
combine terms outside parentheses with each term inside.
do is combine them for the purposes of determining what the indices mean. So in this term, you would combine Aij and Bi first, and in this first combination, you can see that the index I occurs twice while the index J occurs once. Then you do the same thing for Aij and Cj, where the index I occurs once and the index J occurs twice. Finally, you repeat this process for the combination of Aij and Dk, where Ij and K each occur once. Now the second.
What do you mean you combine? That's not multiplying?
second step is to combine the largest count of each index from the breakdown in step 1 and use that as the final index count for the purpose of determining whether an index is free or dummy. So in this example, the largest count of I occurs in the first combination, which is just 2. The largest count of j is 2 and occurs in the second combination, while the largest count of k is just 1, which occurs in the third combination. What does this mean? Well, it means that in the overall term aij times bi plus cj plus dk, I and j are both dummy indices since their overall count is 2 from our analysis, while k is a free index since its overall count is 1. So hopefully that should provide some foundation for how we deal with parentheses and how we distinguish between free and dummy indices when terms in brackets are involved. Let's now solidify our understanding of Einstein notation with some practice examples and light proofs. There are 3 major non-identities that come up in Einstein notation, and I've listed all of them here. Now, I'm not going to rigorously prove these, but I will explain why these non-identities are true, starting with the first non-identity. On the left-hand side, you have a term involving brackets, so let's
Why don't you prove them?
apply our bracket analysis to see what indices I and j represent on the left-hand term. Again, we combine aij and xi, and then we combine aij and yj.
Okay. aij times this is not equal. Well, these are non-identities. So aij xi plus aij yj. Really? Also, aij xi yi not equal to aij xj yi. Like j shows up twice, I shows up twice. You should be able to replace I with K, J with L. But not, I mean, you can also replace I with J. So it could be Ji and then Ji, but not IJJI, of course not. And then this one, J, Ji, Xi, Yi, not equal to two times, of course not, because it's not Aij. This is Aij, but this is AJI. So just the first one, I don't understand. AIJXI and AIJYI. So there's no distributive. So Einstein notation is not distributive.
In the first combination,
no one is watching. We killed everyone.
The index I occurs twice and j occurs once, but in the second combination I occurs once and j occurs twice. The largest count of I from both of these combinations is 2, while the largest count of j is also 2.
All right. So AIJ YJ AIJ index I is 2, J is 1. AIJ YI, sorry, YJ, J is 2.
So therefore, the overall count is 2 for I and 2 for j, which means that I and j are both dummy indices on the left-hand side. However, on the right-hand side, there aren't any brackets involved, so we have to count the indices separately in each term. In the first term, I is a dummy index because it occurs twice, and j is
So I is dummy, J is free here.
the free index because it occurs once. In the second term, the opposite is true, so j is a dummy index while
J is dummy, I is free.
I is a free index. This is actually inconsistent with the left-hand side where both I and j.
The left-hand side, I and J, left-hand side, A, I, J, X, I, so I is twice, I is a dummy. And here, wow, this is so confusing. I and J are both dummy indices and left-hand side. So blue, this is the blue, This is the green. The blue I is dummy. Green J is dummy. That's the left hand side. Right hand side, I is dummy. J is dummy. That's consistent. J is free, I is free. I don't understand this notation. I mean, he needs to prove it. You can't just tell us without proving. I don't understand the considerations.
Are dummy indices together, so it makes sense that this would be a non-identity. What about the second non-identity? Why is this true? Well, if you look at the indices, then both I and j are dummy indices on both sides of the equation, so that's not a problem. However, if you look at some scenarios, like, for instance, when you want to determine the coefficient of x1 times y2, then on the left-hand side, that coefficient will just be a12. However, on the right-hand side, because the indices are switched...
My God, this is becoming difficult. Let's see. Aij, xiyi, aij, xjyi. Of course, it's not the same. Consistent indices, I and j are dummy on both sides. I and j are dummies. I and j are dummies. So that's good. That's okay. However, coefficient of x, I, y, j. What is he saying here? Wow, x1, y2. What did he say here?
The coefficient of x1 times y2, then on the left-hand side, that coefficient will just be a12. However, on the right-hand side, because the indices are switched...
Coefficient of x1, y2, a12. I don't get it. ij, x1, y2. A12. Okay, so I is 1, j is 2. That's what he means. That's the left-hand side. The right-hand side, x1, y2. So j is 1. So it's 2. So it's a21.
Which the coefficient will be a21. And since a12 isn't necessarily equal to a21, this means that the left and right-hand sides aren't necessarily equal to each other. If you still aren't convinced by this reasoning, I encourage you to write out all the terms on both sides by...
That's easy. The first one was impossible.
Supposing that I and j run from 1 to 3, and then show that the two sides of the non-identity are not the same. The third non-identity also follows a similar...
And third non-identity, Aij, we already talked about it. Aij plus Aji, xiyj. Well, we already said that there's no distributive, so you can't say Aij times xiyj. That's not even the problem. Even if it were, it's ij, but this is ji. So of course it's wrong.
Logic when it comes to the proof. Again, there's no problem with the consistency of the indices. You can verify that both I and j are dummy indices on both sides. However, because aij and a...
So I is once, but if you multiplied, I is twice, j is twice. And again, with j twice, I twice. So I and j are dummy variables on the left. I twice, j twice, they're both dummy variables on the right. So that's not a problem. The problem is it's not double because he switches the j, I, j.
AJI aren't necessarily equal. You can't add them together to get 2 times AIJ, especially when you're multiplying that with 2 different variables with different indices, when you're multiplying with xi and yj. Again, I encourage you to write out all the terms on both sides to verify that this is true. In addition to the non-identities and
Okay. The first one is impossible. AIJ xi. So I is twice, j is once. So j is free. AIJYJ, I is free. Over here, j is free, I is free. AX, AY, AX, AY, AIJ, XI, AIJ, XI, AIJYI, IYJ. So why is it not just because there's no distribution? Coefficient of x12, x1, y2 is a12 on left, a21 on right. Oh, that's 2. No, 1. So right side, I is dummy. I is dummy. I is free, J is free. I don't get it. Inconsistent with left-hand side. Why? Mm-hmm. What a guy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like concave Earth has passed all observational tests. Now the next step is to prove to, well, myself first, but then you guys, that light does indeed bend up. Basically, the mechanism for light bending up. Once light bends up, it's game over. That's the way I see it.
So you got an experiment or something like that to see if light bends up.
That's the point. We're putting our mind to the future, putting ourselves in the future, figuring out what's needed, and then making it happen.
All right, well, you can, but it has to apply to reality. So.
Yeah, just you, as far as you're concerned, you just stay back and watch, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Did you figure out that supernova thing yet? Of course not.
I was trying to study retrograde motion a little bit yesterday. Because in concave Earth, the retrograde is a literal the planet's orbiting the celestial sphere, and then it literally goes backwards in retrograde, and then it progrades again. And it has to do with the planet's position compared to the sun. For example, Mercury will retrograde when it's in front of the sun. So we have the sun in front of us, and Mercury's in front of it. Then it begins the retrograde. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me ask those guys why this is so. I can't take a snapshot without the stuff at the bottom. I can't make it disappear. This is so terrible. Just can't get rid of it. Okay, we're going to do a 1 hour test run. We're going to study together, like each separately, but just to get him away from his flat earth server so he can do some PhD work. And I'll do my paper writing, whatever whatever stuff I already know works. Mm-hmm. So I want to take a snapshot of this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to take a snapshot without the garbage at the bottom. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So let's take a snapshot. Where is the snapshotter? Mm-hmm. Actually, I just need this guy. So More gum. More gum. Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can talk to these guys. What?
I have a flat Earth lore question.
To whom?
For Dan.
Well, I don't. Anyway, so I also have a question in the side chat. Einstein notation. Does anyone know Einstein notation?
Not really, no.
No one here knows Einstein notation? So how
Do you ever get tired of what you do? Just curious.
Of course. I mean, this is GR. GR is like I've been trying to do GR for years. It's like I always get stuck with the Einstein notation.
What about it do you get stuck with?
Well, every time is something different. This time, so I'm taking this is a Khan Academy course on Einstein notation.
What are you eating?
Gum. Sorry.
So you
is
chew
it-
gum,
is
don't
it-
really eat it. Don't swallow it when you're done chewing it. You're not supposed to eat it.
Okay.
So what is the problem with the notation? Let's see. Is it algebra?
Well, it's Einstein notation. It's like its own. It's like a summation shorthand. So there's different.
I thought you were talking about the linear algebra and so on.
It's Einstein summation notation. So Einstein removes the summation notation, and there's this. He added different rules. It's like it's
Is
his
there
own.
an H in Einstein?
What?
Is there an H in Einstein?
Is there an H in Einstein? You don't need an H. His name is Einstein. Ein, then that means one, and Stein, that means stone. So Einstein, that's his name. It's like one stone. He only had one stone, but a big one, apparently.
Mm. And are you following his notation to get to your conclusions, or are you like looking at the general ideas of his workings?
Right. I'm doing a GR course, and during the GR course, they start teaching tensors. So I went to do a tensors course, and when I'm doing the tensors course, they're doing Einstein notation. And in the Einstein notation, he's doing problems. He's showing an unidentity. So he says the left-hand side is not equal to the right-hand side because it's inconsistent. The right is not consistent with the left, but I don't understand why. But like, if no one here knows Einstein notation, then I don't know what to tell you. Like Einstein says, the notation, that one of the rules is that like if an index shows up once, then it's free. If it shows up twice, then it's a dummy, and it can't show up 3 times or more. Anyway, it's dummy versus free. He says on the
What are you
right.
taking the classes for? Like, why do you find yourself taking these courses for tensors and all sorts of other things?
I'm trying to figure out GR. That's like the like SR.
Why? What are you gonna do once you figure it out?
I'm trying to fit GR into my ether, obviously.
Well, why? What are you gonna do once you do that?
I simplify all of physics. It's like theory of everything.
Wait. You think you're gonna simplify physics by taking online tensor courses?
Got to start somewhere, bro. Got to
Yeah.
believe in yourself.
Well, it's nothing.
All right. Does anyone here actually believe that's going to be the case? That he's going to fix general relativity by not understanding shit through simple online courses?
Well, this is.
I mean,
No.
I support anybody taking classes to better their understanding of this stuff.
That wasn't
yeah,
the question.
absolutely.
Yeah, that wasn't the question. I
No.
absolutely agree that you should further your education, but the motivation for furthering his education, I don't want him to feel like he's a failure when he doesn't ever accomplish it.
Well, if I don't accomplish it, then I'm just wrong. So
you are wrong.
Well,
usually,
what you should do was study it to learn it. Then, when you understand it, you can start see how that applies to the concave Earth and ether.
No,
but before you understand it, starting with a presupposition that you already have, I think is a wrong starting point.
Well, right now
that's kind of what I was trying to say.
I'm just doing GR because I'm tired of not understanding GR. Like it's like,
good for you.
Yeah, it's like
it is hard. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even
I don't understand. Don't understand it that well myself. I've studied a bit, not that much, but
I mean, Einstein himself had to study curve geometry. He didn't know, like he had to study it in order to do his GR. Like he didn't know it before. He had the notion.
yeah. But is that your problem with this notation, the geometry?
It's a course in tensors that I'm doing in order.
Yeah, okay.
So I need tensors because when it comes to GR, they're using tensors and they're not explaining it, and I have no idea what they're saying with tensors. So I'm doing a separate tensors course. And in the tensors course, this is like in the third lecture, fourth lecture, whatever. So I understand the other two unidentities, but this one, I don't know what he's talking about, but fine.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
Okay. I'll get back to studying. All right, bye. Thank you. Okay. So, anybody watching? Nobody's watching. So, I don't want to waste too much time on this, but did everybody understand it? Wait, how many comments? Okay, only 78 comments from 2018. Let's go to the last comments. $9.23. Okay, there's some potentially relevant questions. We're looking at 312. Okay, by 3, at around 3, he's already figured it out. But he's talking about it at around from 2 to 3, he's talking about it. So if it's too late, too late, too late. This is too early. I need, he calls it unidentity 1, example 1. What does he call it? Non-identity 1. Let's try to hear it again.
Starting with the first non-identity. On the left-hand side, you have a term involving brackets. So let's apply our bracket analysis to see what indices I and j represent on the left-hand term. Again, we combine aij and xi, and then we combine aij and yj. In the first combination, the index I occurs twice. And
notice they say they combine. They don't multiply. What does it mean to combine? Just to put them with an and? That's a combination? So, I guess, okay. I shows up twice. J is free.
And j occurs once. But in the second combination, I occurs once and j occurs twice.
Second combination, green, j twice, I once.
The largest count of I from both of these combinations is 2, while the largest count of j is also 2. So therefore, the overall count is 2 for I and 2 for j, which means that I and j are both dummy indices on the left-hand side.
I and j are both dummy because the maximum count rule. So there's a maximum count rule.
However, on the right-hand side, there aren't any brackets.
So what's the maximum on this side? I twice, j once, j twice, I once. Again, they're both dummies. I is dummy here, j is dummy here. So I and j are both dummies on the right side. I and j are both dummy indices in left-hand side.
Involved. So we have to count the indices separately in each term. In the first term, I is a dummy index because it occurs twice, and j is a free index because it occurs once. In the second term, the opposite is true. So j is a dummy index while I is a free index. This is actually inconsistent with the left-hand side where both...
I see. That's the answer. The answer is because this is an actual term. These are not terms. This is not a term. There's an and here. It's not aijxi. It looks like it, but it's not. So we do the max. I don't know these rules. I mean, these are weird rules. Okay.
Both I and j are dummy indices together, so it makes sense that this would be a non-identity. What about the second non-identity? Why is this true? Well, if you look at the indices, then both I and j are dummy indices on both sides of the equation, so that's not a problem. However, if you look at some scenarios, like, for instance, when you want to determine the coefficient of x1 times y2, then on the left-hand side, that coefficient would just be a1, 2.
Okay,
However,
2 we already did twice, so I don't care for 2. I'll just write a comment that 1 is really not clear. Let's put a timestamp. $3.11. Unidentity 1. Identity 1. LHS I and j are both dummy. RHS is also. Inconsistency or inconsistency. I guess NC.
understanding of Einstein notation with some practice examples and light proofs. There are 3 major non-identities that come up in Einstein notation, and I've listed all of them here. Now, I'm not going to rigorously prove these, but I will explain why these non-identities are true, starting with the first non-identity. On the left-hand side, you have a term involving brackets. So let's apply our bracket analysis to see what indices I and j represent on the left-hand.
We can look up Einstein's first unidentity proof. Einstein notation first on identity proof. We can ask ChatGPT this image appears to be explaining an inconsistency in the use of dummy indices in a mathematical expression, likely within the context of tensor notation or summation conventions like the Einstein summation convention. Breakdown. The expression on the left is AIJXI, where both I and J are dummy indices. Notation implies both indices are summed over when evaluating the expression. The notation implies both indices are summed over. It shows that this is not equal to the right-hand side expression, which splits the terms as a, okay. In this split, indices are treated differently. A is a dummy index, I is a dummy index, and J is free. J is a dummy index, and I is free. This creates inconsistency, as indicated by the label inconsistency with LSI. Right side. The right side provides clear view of how the indices are being used in two examples. Specific values for the indices. Examples. I is 2, J is 1 are specific values for the indices. I is 2, J is 1. I is 1, J is 2, again showing specific values. I don't get it. Yes. What's this? Read aloud.
This image appears to be explaining an inconsistency in the use of dummy indices in a mathematical expression, likely within the context of tensor notation or summation conventions, like the Einstein summation convention. Here's a breakdown of the content. Left side, the expression on the left is aij xi plus yj, where both I and j are dummy indices. The notation implies that both indices are summed over when evaluating the expression. The image shows that this is not equal to the right-hand side expression, which splits the terms as aij xi plus aij yj. In this split, the indices are treated differently. In aij xi, I is a dummy index, and j is free. In AIYJ, j is a dummy index and I is free. This creates an inconsistency as indicated by the label inconsistent with LHS. Right side, the right side provides
So that's the difference. The difference is both I and J are dummy. It's like see, it doesn't multiply it out. It doesn't say, okay, let's distribute. It doesn't do that. So it's like one big thing. Both I and J are dummy. There's no distinction between dummy free, dummy free. They're both dummy because it's all one thing. If you look, you see, there's no distinction. It doesn't multiply it out. And here, it's two distinct. They're both done. Because they didn't show that there's any ability to distribute. So what does it mean? What then what is the meaning of this? I don't understand. What is the meaning of this? They didn't define it. Can you see my mouse? Like, can you see my mouse? Oh, you can't see my mouse? Well, that's terrible. Let's test it. I'm gonna move over the joined voice. Let's see. Oh, let's look at. Let's look at this. IJCJ. IJCJ. Okay, obviously you see my mouse. But what if I'm here? What do you call it? Discord. Do you see my mouse? Yeah, you see my mouse. And if I go to ChatGPT, do you see my mouse? Yeah. Okay. You see my mouse. That's good. So I don't know. I don't have an answer, but for now I'm gonna have to ignore it because that's the way it is. Beginning to become a little bit of the hungry type. Just a little bit of the hungry type. A little bit hungeration. I'm experiencing a little bit hungeration. Is there such a word? Uh, mhm, mhm. Very good, very good. Okay. Okay, I think we are doing pretty good, pretty well. We're doing pretty well. So this was hopeless. We can turn off some stuff. I don't want to leave too many tabs in the opened state. Open state. So why do Indians in nouns stress like the last consonant when they talk? What's that all about? Let's ask Chat. I don't want to waste my ChatGPT points, but that's a good question. So I think so. How it works is that every country, you would think that like Indians, they like English teachers in India are American. That's what like you would assume, but you would be wrong. The English teachers in India have always been Indians. So the first Indian who learned English taught English with Indian accent. And that's all you need to know. That's it. That's spread because he taught the next generation of teachers, and exponentially, immediately, basically, everyone learned his English. So now India speaks that certain guy's English. And they don't know it any better. They don't know any different English. That's what they know. They know the English, and they keep teaching themselves this same English, which is completely different than American or English or British English. And the same goes for every country. Every country, when they first learned English, right, they had a local teacher learned English and taught English with her own accent or whatever, or misunderstandings and mispronunciations. And that spread in that country. So every country speaks English with it's their own English. Every country has their own English because all the teachers are local. The teachers are not American. There's no American teachers going around the planet teaching American English or British English. So every country drags on their own mispronunciations. It's not that I don't think it's as much as their language doesn't allow it. That's a separate problem. But they learn originally the way they learn English is incorrect, and it just it stays in their brain incorrectly. Like certain in certain countries, like I should be pronounced E, and that's how they teach it and learn it, and that's it. Anyway, it's my own theory that I picked up from somebody. It's an interesting concept. Okay, I'm becoming more hungry as time progresses. Just invited a friend to come over for eats. We shall see. We shall see. All right, let's continue as before. Okay, I think we're doing okay. What about this? And this and that. Okay, this. So I don't know what to tell you. It's not so clear. So I'm just gonna take ChatGPT, whatever ChatGPT. I'm just gonna paste it in the comment section for other people. So the expression, the left-hand side, and the right-hand side. The right-hand side is separate. It's clear. The left-hand side is not clear. So I'm just gonna. I thought 3 clicks would do the job. So this is. I'll just put it here for a second. And this Oh shoot. It doesn't fare well. I just want to say, anyway, it's too much work. Forget it. Let's continue. Okay, so we're finished with the three.
Multiplying that with two different variables with different indices when you're multiplying with xi and yj. Again, I encourage you to write out all the terms on both sides to verify that this is true. In addition to the non-identities in Einstein notation, there's also 5 identities that I've written here. Again, I'm not going to rigorously prove all these. I'll explain why they're true and hopefully.
Let's try understand these identities. So aijxj plus aijyj aijyj. So this is identical. This is defined as. So now I'm thoroughly confused. So, oh my God, this is utterly confusing. So I don't understand what is going on. Isn't this the same? aijxi, aijxi, aijyj, aijyj. What is going on? Isn't this identical? What is going on? aijxj aijxi. But xj is fine? So it's going to be xj, yj? That's the answer? Got it. So it's fine if it's consistent. See? I on the right side, right-hand side, I is independent. It's free. I is free. I is free. I is free. So I is always free. There's no contradiction. That's fine. It's defined as, okay. Now ij, xi, yj, ij, okay, let's see. aij, yj, xi. You're allowed to switch around. These are components. I guess this is a component because j is a dimension. It's an index. An index is dimension. aij, xi, xj, you're allowed to do that. aij, xi, xj, this is ji, aji, xi. All right, so there's no distinction between xi, xj. You can switch around these guys. So I and j are both dummies, so you can completely switch them around. So that's fine. aij, aij. Oh my God, it's all one term. So this is aij, aji, but xi, xj. So again, I and j are a dummy. You can switch them around. So you can switch, well, you can either way, you can, whatever, you can switch these two guys around. And if you do that, no, you don't need to. This is xi, xj, xi, xj, but it's 2 aij. Anyway, if you multiply this out to set, you get aij, xi, xj, aij, xi, xj. And this is a, but remember, ij are dummy. You can switch them. So it's ij. So it's aij, xi, xj, aij, xij. You can switch these two around. That goes without saying. Anyway, if you multiply it out, you'll see that it's correct. 5. So this is easy. I thought it's a little bit more difficult. Okay. Ij minus, oh, this is minus. So it's about, oh, it's 0. Wow. Okay, because it's 2. So it's 0. Wow. Genius. Absolute genius. Okay.
Hopefully my explanation will give you a better idea of how Einstein notation works. Now this identity is very similar to the first non-identity. The only change is the fact that you have xj plus yj instead of xi plus yj. But this difference is enough to make both sides equal. The reason is that unlike the non-identity, the indices on both sides are now consistent. On the left, I is a free index and j is a...
Yeah, this is easy. the indices are consistent. Let me take some medication before I die of non-medication. Nom 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 nom. Let me drink some water with the medication. I love medication. It's so good. Nom nom. Ah. Mmm. Deliciosos. Deliciosos. Okay. Maybe we'll finish this lecture and go eat the foods. The foods for the eats.
The dummy index, and the same is
So this is easy. I mean, we're going to zip through this.
true for each term on the right. That's why this identity holds true, and you can actually prove to yourself that I'm right by assuming that I and j run from 1 to 3 and by expanding out both sides of the identity. Let's now look at the second identity. It's very easy to
That's a good idea to always expand it out and go through 1, 2, 3, or even 1, 2.
see why this one is true. All you've done is switch the position of the xi and yj, so obviously since multiplication is commutative, this would hold true. But
multiplication is commutative, no problem.
What about the third identity? Let's look at the left-hand side first. From identity number 2, we can change the left-hand side to aij times xj times xi. And this is pretty much the exact same as the right-hand side of the identity, except the indices I and j are switched. But that doesn't really matter since I and j are both dummy indices, and as we mentioned in the previous video, you can switch the letters representing dummy indices without too much hassle. So therefore, by the transitive
of course you can switch the letters of dummies.
Property of equality, aij times xi times xj is identically equal to aji times xi times xj. The fourth identity states that aij plus aji times xi times xj is identically equal to 2aij times xi times xj. I'm actually going to prove this identity to show that it's true. We'll start with the left-hand side. Now, if we use
Really? You need to prove it? This is so simple.
The rules of Einstein notation and parentheses that I just spoke about, then you can see that both I and j are dummy indices here. That means that I and j are both being summed over. We'll suppose that they're being summed over from 1 to 3, though you could just as easily show this for another range. 1 to 3 tends to...
Can I do this? So consider left-hand side. So aij times xi xj, is he going to explicitly multiply? Assume I and j vary from 1 to 3. So aij times xi xj. So in the beginning, it's you're holding. Oops.
To just be the most common.
You're holding I constant, and you're going through j 1, 2, 3. So it would be a1. Sorry, ai1 times xi x1 plus the next term. So you're going to have 3 of those, and then you're going to do the same for I equals, sorry, you're going to do everything for I equals 1, j 1, 2, 3. I equals 2, j 1, 2, 3. I equals 3, j 1, 2, 3. Right? You're going to just add all these terms. That's all that this says. And then you're going to do this guy, but let's see if she wants to come eat the foods. All right. So
range in tensor calculus, so that's why I'm sticking with it. Now, since I and j are being summed over, we can add these sigmas in front. We can then go ahead and take care of the first summation, and this is what
he's adding the summation, so it's double summation. It's good to see, like once in a while you really need to see the whole thing. So double summation, so summation, so he's holding I, sorry, he's actually, yeah, he's holding I at 1 and going through all of j's, writing j, but i's 1. Now he's going to do the same thing for i's 2, and then I3, and close brackets. And then you need to run through the j's.
We'll get. Let's now apply.
Now you need to apply the sigma of the j's.
The second summation.
Oh,
Now these diagonal.
wow, he wrote everything out. Jesus. This is good. Wow. So this is how you prove. This is like a formal proof, which is very straightforward. Like it's just blue collar work.
Diagonal terms all come together quite nicely. So you have 2a11 times x1 and so on. But what about the non-diagonal terms? Well, we can combine them with other non-diagonal terms thanks to the fact that multiplication is commutative. So for instance, a23 down here combines with the other a23 up here, a32 does the same with the a32 up here, and so on until after combining all the like terms and simplifying, this is what you end up with. And if we simplify this by combining the dummy indices and applying the Einstein summation convention, we end up with 2aij times xi times xj, which is exactly the right-hand side of the fourth identity. So therefore, we've proven the fourth identity. Finally, let's look at the fifth identity. For the proof, what we can do is exactly what we did for the fourth identity and expand out the summation that the left-hand side represents.
Awesome. So that's how you prove these things. Fantastic.
The expanded term will be exactly the same as what we got for the fourth identity, except now the
so people who just teach GR and just say, and like, they just, I guess they just assume we know tensors. I don't get it.
Pluses between the a's will get replaced by minuses. And after a whole bunch of simplifying and canceling,
it's like a whole course.
And common terms will end up with 0. And so we've proven the fifth identity. The last topic in this video is going to be the Kronecker delta symbol. The Kronecker delta symbol is defined as follows using delta ij. And when the index I and j are equal, delta ij is 1. And when they're not equal, delta ij is 0. The Kronecker delta symbol provides an effective way to...
Okay, so Kronecker delta is defined, Kronecker delta ij is defined as the Kronecker delta of ji, which is defined as Kronecker delta ij, which is defined as 1 when I is equal to j and 0 when I is not equal to j. This is like a dot product. This is the dot product when I and j are different dimensions. So if they're different, it's 0. If they're the same, it's 1. This is just a dot product of like 90 dimensions.
To eliminate off-diagonal terms. And by off-diagonal terms, I mean terms where I and j are not equal to each other. And because of this property, it comes up a lot in tensor calculus. It should be pretty easy to see from the definition that delta ij and delta ji are both identical. Let's look at a short example involving the Kronecker delta.
Oh, so delta ij, delta ji, for all I and j, they're equal. Right. Because it's only when I equals j that it's equal to 1. And if they're not the same, it's equal to 0. So it doesn't matter if you say, so Kronecker delta ij is 1 for I equals j. And Kronecker delta ji is 1 for I equals j. The rest are 0, so they're identical.
This example asks us to simplify delta ij times xi times xj. And this is relatively easy. As you know from the definition, delta ij.
This is like, somebody should watch me doing this course because I'm actually explaining everything. So I'm giving you commentary. So I should take the name of this video, his video. The name of his video should be my video, so that when anybody searches for this, they'll see my video, but fine. So example, simplify. Well, what's the answer? Is she coming? Okay. Okay, example. Simplify Kronecker delta ij times xi xj. Okay. So we only care for the ij where I equals j, so it's x. So basically it's x, right? This is the summation, right? So if we didn't have the Kronecker delta, we would say xi xj, right? They're both free, so it's just xi xj. But because the Kronecker, they're both dummy. So if they're both dummy, that means you have to run through the summation of everything. So this means this is equivalent to x1 x1 squared plus x2 squared plus x3 squared. That's the answer.
j is 0 whenever I and j aren't equal. So this means that the only terms remaining from this expression will be when I and j are both equal, and delta ij is 1. Therefore, delta ij times xi times xj becomes xi times xi, or xj times xj, depending on your preference, according to the definition of the Kronecker delta. Anyway, that should do it for this video. I'd like to thank the following.
So I guess not. I guess it's a violation of the show up twice rule. Wow. So the Kronecker delta is not, doesn't count as a normal term or whatever. Coefficient, who knows? Okay, and that's the end of that. So I'm still waiting to hear if she's coming to eat because I'm starved. Okay, let's see. There's no one watching. No one is watching.
Or xj times xj, depending on your preference, according to the definition of the Kronecker delta. Anyway, that should do it for this video. I'd like to thank the following patrons for supporting me at the $5 level or higher. I put a link to my page. Greetings, students, and welcome back to another video on tensors. In this short lesson, I'm going to go over some topics in the linear algebra of tensors. I'll start the video by talking about linear transformations. Suppose I had a vector x.
So this is only 4 minutes. So this is linear algebra of tensors, linear transformations.
In a coordinate system C that looked like this. If my coordinate system C was transformed to another coordinate system C prime, and if this transformation was performed by a linear transformation, then how would the vector x appear in the new coordinate system? Well, this is how it would.
So some linear transformation, meaning there's no squares and square roots and stuff. Just y equals mx plus b. Not even that, because there's no plus b. There's no offset. So some linear transformation. So you represent x using, you represent c using c prime, some coefficient times a combination of c primes. So the original, this is x. The original x is a times, so x prime, this is x prime, well, whatever, but this is x. So x prime is equal to a x plus b y plus cz. That's the transformation. So you always apply ABC to x, y, z. There's some factors that you apply to ABC, I think, or different. One for x, one for y. So x prime, I don't know. I think it's x prime is equal to a times x plus b times, or a1. Oh my god, this is so confusing.
Would appear in C prime as the vector x prime, which equals a matrix L times the original vector x in the coordinate system C. The matrix.
Oh, that's interesting. It's a matrix. So this is the vector. Oh, this saves so much time. So the question is it always the same matrix to convert? Oh, x is a vector. Oh, so this is already defined in x1, x2, and x3, I guess, if you call it x is a vector. So one matrix converts any vector into the new coordinate system.
L is called the transformation matrix, and in general, we can use a matrix to represent linear transformations. Now, keep in mind that linear transformations cover a fairly small subset of transformations, including scaling the axes and rotating the axes. They're mainly transformations that map a line in the C coordinate system to another line in the C prime coordinate system. But what about more general transformations? Well, instead of constant matrices, general transformations can be expressed as functions. So again, if I have my vector x in the D coordinate system, and if I transform the D coordinate system to a D prime coordinate system with a general transformation.
Oh, curved spacetime. So there's some curved space, curved axes, right? Not necessarily straight. So some curved space, you want to convert from Cartesian to curved space. So then you would have a matrix that's not full of constants, but rather full of functions.
Then the image vector x prime, the vector you get after transforming x, is given by the following expression, where t is the function that defines the general transformation. You can also write this equation in terms of the components of x prime.
So it's not a matrix. It's a function.
Following expression, where t is the function that defines the general transformation. You can also write this equation in terms of the components of x prime given by x prime I, in which case you would get the following, where x prime I is in general a function ti of all the components of the original vector x.
But the components is the vector. What is t? T is also a function? Yeah, he's writing it out. So t is a function?
In which case you would get the following, where x prime I is in general a function ti of all the components of the original vector x. There's some important definitions involving general transformations that I'd like to go over. The first is the definition of a bijective transformation, which is basically a one-to-one transformation. Every x corresponds to a unique x prime, and every x prime corresponds to a unique x. The image x prime of a bijective transformation T represents a set of admissible coordinates for x, and the collection of all these admissible coordinates, the aggregate of these admissible coordinates, comprises a coordinate system. Now, if T is linear, the x prime I coordinate.
Is he Indian? They're all Indian.
Of all these admissible coordinates, the aggregate of these admissible coordinates comprises a coordinate system. Now, if T is linear,
no, he's not Indian. I have no idea what he's talking about at this point. What do you mean function? So we're forgetting about a matrix? Like in the beginning you said we can use a matrix L, a conversion matrix, a transformation matrix. Transformation matrix, that was L. For linear, L is linear. But now we're doing a general T transformation, which is a function. So you take X and you transform it. But this transform, you already see it's a vector of functions. Right? This T is a function, but it's a different function for each dimension. So this is a function for the first dimension. This is how to transform the first dimension so you take the vector, right? You want to convert this vector. This is the first index, the first dimension. Again, you're going to take this same vector, apply it to t. This is t1 for x1, and then you're going to have t2. But is t1 and t2, are they different? And what is it? It's a function. Okay. What is a bijective transformation? Is one-to-one. Every x in the original coordinate system corresponds to a unique x prime in the image. Right. This is called bijective. So this is like a unique. So a bijective transformation is a unique transformation. It's a one-to-one transformation. So you're not going to end up. There's no circles. You're not going to say that it's curved, but there's no circles suddenly. So if it's circles, you're gonna get a non-uniqueness. So the lines are curved, but they don't curve on themselves. That's fine.
Prime corresponds to a unique x. The image x prime of a bijective transformation T represents a set of admissible coordinates for x, and the
What is the image? The image x prime, what is image? Of a bijective transformation T represents a set of admissible coordinates. I don't know what is image. You can say the value x prime. Like you converted the original vector into the x prime, into a different vector in the curved coordinate system. Represents a set of admissible coordinates. What do you mean set of admissible coordinates? I don't get it. So the image is all the admissible coordinates?
collection of all these admissible coordinates, the aggregate of these admissible coordinates, comprises a coordinate system. Now, if T is linear, the x prime I coordinate system is called a...
So if T is linear, we're back to what we did before, linear transformation. So that's not a curved space.
affine coordinate system. In addition, if T is a non...
In that case, the coordinate system is called an affine coordinate system.
linear transformation, then the x prime I coordinate system is also
curved.
Called a set of curvilinear coordinates. Examples would include polar coordinates, cylindrical coordinates, and spherical coordinates. Now, I'm going to end this video by briefly going over the chain rule for partial derivatives. I won't be deriving the chain rule, I'll just show what it looks like in Einstein notation.
Why don't people derive anymore?
Suppose that W is a function of n variables u, where the variable u...
Okay, this is the chain rule for partial derivatives. Why don't you do like a formal proof? What's the problem? Why do you always fake everything? W is a function of u1 through un. Okay, some function. W is some function where ui is a set of coordinates, I guess.
ui is itself a function of m variables.
Oh, no. ui is a function ui of x. So u is halfway through. U is expressed in another dimension. This is basically what we just did. So u is the transformation. U is like the x prime. It's a secondary coordinate system. It's the alternative coordinate system. It's the other point of view. It's like the curved space. It's the transformed space. So we have the original space and the transformed space. But the transformed space is a function of x. So we have u and we have x. So space u is a function of space x. This is what he's saying. Now we have a function, some value, this function, we have some value for every vector in u, in the transformed space, for every vector, every point in u space, we have an evaluating function f that gives us value w. Okay. And u, each u can be expressed as a function of an x coordinate system. We have a u coordinate system, an x coordinate system, and of course we can transform from x to u. And this is the transformation. ui, this is the ti from before. Is she coming? She usually eats a lot. Let's say, okay, she's hungry. Okay, I need to make a lot of food. All right, let me go make some food. She's already on the way, so I'm not going to be able to finish this proof. Okay, we're going to stop here. We will stop here and we will continue later. Plus, I was very surprised to hear that they've never done a GR course. They don't know Einstein notation, so they don't know what a tensor is. So I'm really confused how they keep making fun of me, but they don't know more than I know. So what? Like I was assuming they all know GR. I don't get it. What's wrong with these people? Terrible, absolutely terrible. And he says, "Oh, I just don't want him to hurt his feelings when he finally doesn't accomplish what he's setting out to accomplish." And that's why you're hurting my feelings endlessly now, because you're such a good person. Such hypocrites. Terrible, terrible people. Absolutely terrible. Okay, we're going to stop here. Thank you everyone for watching. You've been a great audience. I really appreciate it. You know what? Just before we finish, let me take... I do want to take... basically Linear Algebra Concepts for Tensors. Okay, let's just change the name. So instead of what is a tensor, what is general relativity, we didn't do any of that. So let's just... oops, let's do study time. Basic linear algebra concepts for tensors. Okay. And she says, wow, she's almost here. She's going to be starving. Okay, I modified the name. Everything is fine. All right, everyone. I'll take a break and I'll see you later. Bye.